And a very good morning to you this Monday morning. You are very welcome along to OTB AM. We've got a brilliant weekend to look back on. We're going to be looking back on the Ryder Cup, the return of Diarmuid Connolly for Vincent's. That's where that is in the hierarchy. I'm kind of like there. I was actually going to lead with Diarmuid Connolly coming back for Vincent's ahead of the Ryder Cup. In the end, the Ryder Cup was a bit of a damn squib.
Yeah,
it wasn't really. That's not fair. That's not fair.
You've been out of the country so long that you're just clinging on to any sort of GAA storyline that you can possibly get your hands on at this point. Welcome back.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I mean, I did smuggle some Tato across to the States. I'm not going to lie to you.
What was the hype like over there for the Ryder Cup? Non-existent?
I didn't even... Somebody mentioned it in passing in one of the podcasts that I listened to. Hey, the Ryder Cup's this weekend. Yeah, it is, isn't it? And that was it. There was no... the Golf Channel had some stuff on, in fairness.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that.
Which comes on the basic hotel package, and this was 3 or 4 days out, but they were like, it was 3 a.m. You'd have to get up at 3 a.m. to start watching it. Like, no, 3 a.m, no. Yeah, we're not doing that.
We do often complain about when things are on in the States and we've got to stay up extra late to actually watch them, but it's far worse the other way around when we've got something on.
It turns out this is one of the best places in the world to watch American football, for example, because certainly if you go to a game, so I was at the Eagles-Colts game, and the Eagles fans are everything that you would expect them to be. They are as advertised. No, very drunk. They drink from 10 in the morning until so you go, traditionally in stadiums in America you can drink in your seats, which is a massive breakthrough, but also the story is they close the bar at half-time, right? So at the end of half-time, or maybe the start of the third quarter is the end of, which is effectively the same thing. They close the bar and you're like, oh, what time is the bar? Sometime around the fourth, middle of the fourth quarter. But they keep coming up to your seat to throw the beers at you, to the point where everybody is just full of gassy, burpy, belchy beer.
Anger.
Luckily, the Colts did not pull off a last-minute victory, but I would die in retrospect to see what would have happened. If so, yesterday the Eagles lost in fairly dramatic overtime fashion. I would love to see what happens in the Eagles Stadium when they lose those games. There's
a lot of anger being taken out in bad ways, I'd imagine, in Philadelphia at a certain time. So thankfully you weren't there to witness that.
Oh, I'd love to have seen it. I would actually.
You probably would have been the punching bag.
I know, you've got to be an Eagles fan for the day when you're in the Eagles Stadium. Fly, Eagles, fly is their crappy song.
What was the worst thing you said while supporting the Philadelphia Eagles? You probably said some horrible things. No. I'm very, very polite young man these days. Right. Congratulations on that.
Things have changed.
I'm sure they have. Like, I'm disappointed that there wasn't massive Ryder Cup hype over in the United States, because I'm only deriving any pleasure out of this 10.5 win to the absolute displeasure of the United States. I'm only happy if they're deeply unhappy this morning. That's the only reason why the Ryder Cup matters. It's not any sort of European pride. It's only to do with sort of like real agony from an American perspective. That's the only thing we can gain anything from in the Ryder Cup.
So I arrived in on Friday morning and missed the first session where it was 3-1 to America, and woke up and was like, I don't know if I'm going to watch any of this. 3-1 to the Yanks, they've got the best team, they're going to hammer us. And then the afternoon session was like, we hammered them 4-0. I'm mad into this now. This is going to be great. I can't wait for every second of this.
Yeah, and it got better and better and better, and it was just such a fitting way for it all to end, for Phil to crash into the water and Francesco Molinari gets into like a big huddle with actual European fans. It was a strange thing that was the first thing that happened. It was almost like the hooligan era in football, where you're just in the middle of a bunch of fans in the stand to celebrate a great sporting achievement. Francesco Molinari with a load of European people draped in the blue flag and gold stars, celebrating immediately as Phil Mickelson conceded on the tee box. Yeah. It was beautiful. They were so pissed off, the Americans, and that made me so happy.
Yeah, at least Rory only made sure that the ball had to go onto the green before he conceded, even though he could easily have conceded when he chipped into when he played that hole the way we play golf, basically. A ball plugged in a bunker, you leave it in the bunker, you shoot from the bunker to the water, and then you're like, yeah, okay, I can drop the ball finally. And your playing partner going, come on! It's the 18th, we can go in and have a pint, come on. That was exactly, I was looking at him going, I know exactly. For once in my life, I can legitimately say I know exactly how you feel, buddy.
And he missed the ball by about 6 feet in that first stroke in the ball. It wasn't a terrible lie, and he just completely rushed into that shot. It was almost as if he wanted it to be over himself.
Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah, maybe he just wanted it to go, like, the real thing, when okay, so last week I was saying the Ryder Cup does matter because I really want Europe to win, but I did realise that it isn't as important as we tried to make out at that point yesterday afternoon, when I was actually happy that Justin Thomas had won that match, when I was happy that it looked like there was a lot of red at the top of the leaderboard, that we could get a little bit nervous about it. Like, that's not what you want your team to do. Of course I wanted Europe to win, but if it was any team that I really did support,
you want them just to crush the opposition.
Exactly. I don't want there to be any nervousness.
No. Surely when you're a Greg Kerry team were like 2-5 to no score up against Mayo after Donaghy has killed them in the blink of an eye, you're like, oh, come on, give us a game at least.
No.
You must have been.
Of course not.
Okay, was that no. There must have been years where you're like, come on, we want someone to give us a game.
No, maybe the Dubs feel like that these days, because it's just...
Dubs definitely feel like that. You can hear them kind of going,
Like, but 4 in a row, I'm sure you do feel that. But we never had 4 in a row. We never had that sort of consistent... In my lifetime,
Okay.
we never had that feeling of sort of a consistent
History
thing.
starts in 1992 because the Premier League and Owen are both born.
Yeah, let's go. Let's roll with that.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Our Ryder Cup coverage is brought to you in association with Now TV. Only pay for the days you want and stream all 10 Sky Sports channels with the Now TV Sports Pass. Here's Paul McGinley talking about how Team USA ultimately didn't win.
Team in that department, do you?
Well, they didn't perform, and their body language wasn't particularly good. Did Dustin Johnson have the same aura about him that he has when he plays a PGA Tour event? Certainly Tiger Woods didn't. I mean, we all can see that. He walked around like a no man. He didn't look like the Tiger Woods we see even last week in Atlanta.
He kind of admitted it in the press conference, said, look, I've played 7 out of 9 weeks.
Yeah, he was jaded. There's no doubt about that. And I think their scheduling, when we look at the preparation for the Americans, I don't think they were ready for this exam, but I also think they weren't ready in terms of their scheduling. It was at the end of the FedEx. Obviously, the FedEx had all the priority in their minds and in their hearts to a large extent. As much as they talk about the Ryder Cup, their focus and all of their focus is on that. Interesting, one of their best performances this week, although he got beaten badly today, was Jordan Spieth, who had the week off last week. I think our team were fresher. We had more vibrancy about us. We had better body language, and that just wasn't related to our momentum going away. Out of the blocks, we looked like we were. We had a different vibe about us and a different energy.
I wonder, does that mean that they'll change the dates? We'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. Here's what's coming up. Alan Quinlan's going to join us around about 8:45. The swashbuckling performance of the weekend was obviously Munster annihilating Ulster in the Pro 14. We'll talk about that and what that means for the rest of their season, just how good their team is at the moment. We'll run you through all the GAA club stories. Owen's beloved East Kerry are high-flying with the Clifford brothers doing lots of damage for them yesterday. And we'll also speak with Andy Mitten about... normally we get Andy Mitten on and we go, okay, so it seems like a low point now, Andy. And that's been kind of consistent over the last couple of years, but this seems like a low point at the moment. They're still obviously in the Champions League, but a 3-1 defeat with the team that José Mourinho picked at the weekend, in particular against West Ham, this is definitely a low point.
I wonder what point does Andy Mitten just start crying down the Skypline to us? I'd say that could be this morning.
I wonder if, though, because you're a Man United fan and you're of a certain age, you're like, yeah, we saw the Ron Atkinson era, we saw what happened before that. Like, so this is the 20-year interregnum now. It's like, there was the Strange Kind of Glory era with Matt Busby, 25 years. Then there's the Alex Ferguson era, which lasts 25 years. And then there's another 25 years, and you're like, oh, okay, well.
Well, the good news is you're already 5 years through that then. Like, at least there was this sort of disillusion that maybe Manchester United were able to contend for the Premier League title year after year post Alex Ferguson, and that's just not the case. But the good news is the post Alex Ferguson era is 5 years deep. That means you're 5 years into your lull without even realising you're in the lull. So there's positives this morning.
Exactly. Let's get to the newspapers.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie. Championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.
What's the over-under on the number of Bjorn supremacies in the newspapers?
2.
Well, I can give you 2 straight away.
I've already looked at all the back pages.
So, the Bjorn Supremacy is the back page of the Irish Independent this morning. They've got Connolly, top right-hand corner, and they've got José Mourinho beside him. Things can only get worse for Mourinho. United boss at tipping point, says Miguel Delaney. And Connolly returned fuel speculation. I'm just going to go straight to the other Bjorn Supremacy. So it's not on the front of the Examiner. It's inside the Examiner. The Bjorn Supremacy as Europe holds all the aces. There you go, I could probably follow that for you there. So the Bjorn Supremacy on that one. I'd say there's more than that. Surely some of the tabloids have it too, no?
There is. I didn't really think that you'd actually kind of skew things by going into inside the newspaper. Like the Star have the Bjorn Supremacy on the back of their thing. I wonder, does anybody consider the Bjorn identity or the Bjorn ultimatum or the Bjorn legacy? The Bjorn legacy, perhaps.
Very underrated, is it?
Well, as a headline, is there a legacy from this? Perhaps it certainly would have got me more chin stroking than the Bjorn Supremacy. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Is there a legacy from the Supremacy, I guess?
I mean,
that's a good question.
Who knows? Who can ever tell if there's any legacy ever from the Ryder Cup?
Probably the answer is no.
So look, the Ryder Cup was yesterday. I wanted the Yanks to win like four or five early matches to turn it into something good. Because that's when it's like, it justifies sitting in your pants watching TV all day.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I didn't really need much of a reason to justify that yesterday. But I think the match winning, or the championship winning, Ryder Cup winning matchup yesterday was John Ram. Like, obviously it'll go down in the history books as Francesco Molinari having won the Ryder Cup, and of course he was Europe's outstanding player. But I was thinking yesterday, when Tiger Woods had got it back to all square after being 2 down against John Ram on whatever it was, the 13th hole perhaps, that was when I thought, right, okay, we could actually be in for a very nervous finish, because Tiger Woods is now going to win this match. And then suddenly he didn't. John Ram won the next 2 holes, went back 2 up himself, and Tiger Woods, looking like the old man that Paul McGinley mentioned there, looking like the seasoned veteran that had been taken down by the wily youngster, who had just come along, his hero Tiger Woods, taken him down, brought him down a peg or two from his win at the Tour Championship the previous week, and won that match. And that was the reason why the Europeans could look around the course and say, well,
doesn't matter now.
Doesn't matter now.
Well, so it was exactly around, but Poulter around about the same time was kind of up and down against Dustin Johnson. I mean, McGinley was like, did Johnson look as impressive as he does on the PGA Tour? And I mean, he was dropping the ball in from 60 feet with alarming regularity, and then Poulter would just do something in the next hole, stitch it to 5-6 feet and make the putt. That was a really brilliant Ryder Cup singles match, because that's the best in the world against somebody who seems to have dragged himself back to golfing relevance in the last 18 months out of nowhere, really.
Yeah, it's
maybe
true.
The last 13 months.
Just on the kind of comparisons between the PGA Tour and this particular event, like, I had to do what a lot of people wanted to do yesterday, and I tried to find a stream with Golf Channel, because I wanted to hear what the Yanks were saying and how they were trying to justify this. And I think it was Saturday evening when it became apparent that Europe had a very, very, very good chance of winning the Ryder Cup. They were like, well, you know, the home course advantage is always worth 1.5, 2 points. And then yesterday afternoon turned it on and was like, you know, home course advantage is always worth 4.5 points. So I do wonder at the end, did they justify it to like 7.5 points? Because that is surely the only reason why this crappy European team were able to take down the best USA team of all time. I'm just so happy that those smug Americans are put back in their place. They make me very, very angry.
The golf?
The smug golf American fans. The problem is, the players actually aren't that smug. Now, I previously had a strong dislike for Justin Thomas. Like, I just don't like the cut of him.
Out of nowhere.
Just for no reason whatsoever. But yesterday he was really humble in his victory interview against Rory McIlroy. It might have been to do with the idea that the USA were still going to get taken to the cleaners later on in the afternoon, and he had to stay humble. But I kind of wanted him to be really pissed off or say I was way better than Rory this afternoon, just to try and help that stereotype that I'd formed of Justin Thomas, that he was a bit of an asshole. But it turns out he's actually a pretty nice guy. Most of those USA players are pretty nice guys.
Well, if nothing else happened over the course of this Ryder Cup, then a meeting of the minds between you and Justin Thomas has justified you sitting on the couch for the whole weekend.
Oh, don't worry, I've justified that a long time ago.
So, major US invasion repelled by Europe's irresistible forces is Malachi Clerkin on the front of the Irish Times. Unity of purpose buries US revival. It's hard the day after when everybody's actually watched it and there has been no final day drama for the newspapers to go, how do we make this interesting now again? How do we write like thousands and thousands of words? And like, in fairness, they've done a great job in all the newspapers. They go through the match by match, and then there's great photographs of everything as well. And I think from an Irish perspective, mentioning that Pádraig Harrington is the Ryder Cup captain in waiting, like, that'll be good. Harrington going completely crazy in the build-up to it, just being Harrington and as obsessive as he is. And then going over to America and razing America to the ground. Yeah,
Whistling Straits in 2 years' time, that'll be a good one. And then it's Italy, in 4 years' time? the homecoming of Francesco Molinari once again. That storyline you can already get your typewriter out and start writing that storyline for 4 years' time.
And then so it's 4 years in Italy and then 8 years in JP, is it?
So yeah, that's yet to be confirmed. So,
well, I know, but like everybody,
it's looking all but confirmed. But maybe they want to continue this intercontinental tour, this continental tour, I should say, from Paris to Italy, maybe to wherever they hold the Spanish Open. Or wherever tends to frequent or whatever.
Catalonia would have been the.
Yeah, like it was an exceptional event from a television perspective. Anyway, it looked epic, and I think that was helped by the fact that it was in the Golf Nacional. It was just it was sort of this very corporate setup that was just perfect for the Ryder Cup. That the whole traditional setup. Maybe the Ryder Cup has moved beyond that, and maybe we should embrace this new corporate future that the Ryder Cup kind of holds, and that is its place in golf right now.
Yeah. Okay. So the Racing Post, Fresh Philly, Enable in great shape for ARC follow-up bid. Rivals looking for chinks and hot favourite Enable at the start of Qatar Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe week. We're given a little reason for hope yesterday, so apparently Enable is in great form. And then Cherries may struggle to pick off Palace. Bournemouth against Crystal Palace tonight is the game. Stay away. Bournemouth against Crystal Palace, I would say stay away. I did the Irish Examiner, didn't I?
Yeah, stay away from betting-wise or...
Yeah.
Oh yeah, not as an actual...
So there's the Examiner, the front page properly, sorry. In safe hands, Europe thrash USA to regain Ryder Cup inside. It is a nice tiny little trophy when you consider some of these trophies are a bit crap. L'équipe, the front of L'équipe. L'union fait la force. The union makes the force. The force is with the union.
Yeah, I think that's it. But a union that doesn't evolve. One single Frenchman. So screw you, L'Équipe, this morning is what I say. Like we get one over the Americans and we get one over the French. We played golf in your backyard and there wasn't even one of you to play with us. That's how sweet it is this morning. The French and the Americans, probably the two most insufferable bunch of people we kind of take on in a sporting sphere. We get to just kind of rub it in both of their faces. The greatest team of all time, the back page of the Irish Daily Mail. Bjorn hails Ryder Cup heroes, but now he has to get a tattoo. And a controversial penalty keeps Cork in the FAI Cup. Bows Cork has gone to a replay in the Cup semi. Just to move on
What's the tattoo thing?
I was just about to move on to that here because they lead with that in the Mirror. Incredible. So Captain Bjorn is planning to get tattoo of score on his backside after Europe stuffed dire Americans, it says on the back page here. So...
Why?
Well, he must have said so. Let me put it this way. It's going to go on a part that only Grace, his girlfriend, will see. I might have to send them a picture, then you'll all see it as well. It was the worst decision I made all week. So he has... it was a pre-match pledge by Bjorn to have the winning outcome inked on his body. So that was a pretty stupid thing to do, is what I would say. Like, at what point does the sort of Al Pacino-esque pre-tournament speech and oration from Thomas Bjorn turn into the point where he's like, oh, by the way, I'll get a tattoo on my arse if we win? Like, I'm sure it was all poetic before that, and then he just kind of, everybody was like, lowest common denominator stuff, Thomas. But we're going to hold you to that. I'm sure that's how it happened. You've also got horrendous there on the back page of the Mirror. Shaw comes clean on José's United flops. That's Darren Lewis's story. Diarmuid Connolly leading the way, to no surprise at all, on the back page of the Herald. Deer Hunter, Connolly back on glory trail with St. Vincent's. So St. Vincent's, you suspect, are probably in the driving seat to win the Dublin Championship. Ballymun are out after their surprising loss to St. Jude's at the weekend. You've also got Ballybode and St. Enda's who are in the mix as well. They beat Castleknock 121-19 Vincent's at the weekend. Connolly came on with about 20 minutes to go. Got a great ovation by all accounts. So that's the back page of the Herald. Back page of the Irish Daily Star is the Bjorn Supremacy, mark number 3. Thomas to get tattoo after Ryder Glory, and Shaw's sorry for Red's display. While the back page of the Sun also goes with Incredibles, Bjorn score tattoo where only we can see, and this is Postman Poulter celebrating history.
Only wife can see.
Only wife can see, sorry. Manchester United exclusive here by Neil Costa saying, Zizou, is it? Zidane's call to Jose has a special one, fearing axe. So Zinedine Zidane called José Mourinho to tell him he'd be stabbing him in the back.
So he actually rang him up to say...
No, so what's actually happened here is that, he rang to say, I might take your job one day. But to do so, it was part of an act of kind of camaraderie with José Mourinho, because of course José was pretty good to Zinedine Zidane. He looked after him at Real Madrid. He got him his first sort of... He pushed him into a career where he'd be on the coaching staff and eventually manager of Real Madrid, rather than one of these corporate hooers, so to speak, that like would have been a fairly cushy number for him at Real Madrid. One of the great corporate numbers you'd imagine in world football. But José Mourinho decided that he would take him into football. And
yeah. And lo and behold, he became one of the most successful managers in the history of the game.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe we've got José Mourinho to thank for the successes in Zinedine Zidane.
Nathan is listening this morning. He's been in touch. Said the PGA Tour season is changing next year, so the Tour Championship will finish a month before the Ryder Cup. The Masters is in April, PGA in May, US Open in June, the Open in July, the FedEx Cup in August, and the Ryder Cup is in September. So thanks for clearing that up, Nathan. Which means that the Yanks will be less tired the next time round when poor Park Harrington will be walking into the Lions' Den of a refreshed, relaxed, up for it, vengeance-seeking team of Americans.
Yeah, like that would probably be the sweetest of the sweet. if Padraig Harrington was to captain a team in the United States, a team looking for revenge and beat them.
Yeah,
that would just be. You can't.
Taking straight is New York, is it?
Yeah, it's somewhere around there. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's on Eastern time anyway, but I don't know what part.
That's not too bad. It's actually perfect.
Are you already timing your television watching schedule for 2 years' time?
Well, I'm just trying to work out, is this a good part of the world to watch that tournament or not? It is. It's perfect.
It's fine. Great Sunday night time. It'll clash with Red Zone, of course.
Yeah, that's not so good.
Not great. A couple of UK back pages. Rhapsody in Blue says the back page of The Guardian.
That's better. Come on.
Europe regained the Ryder Cup with a crushing victory in Paris and fuming for the front here.
It's a bit arch. I mean, Gershwood reference in the back page of the sports section. It's a bit arch.
It's The Guardian. And so just to mention, it's hunting from the front. Hamilton unhappy with manner of Russia Grand Prix win. I only caught a small bit of this yesterday. Valtteri Bottas was told to get the hell over and let Lewis Hamilton come through to win the Grand Prix yesterday. Of course, Hamilton's like, we wouldn't want to win a race in this manner, and Bottas was clearly unhappy. I do recall, Formula 1 fans may be able to correct me on this, but I do remember a couple of seasons ago, Nico Rosberg was told to do the exact same thing. Oh no, sorry, Lewis Hamilton was told to do the exact same thing so that Rosberg could come through and win a race, and Hamilton went absolutely apeshit. So he should get a lesson or two from how Bottas behaved yesterday and how to be, a little bit pissed off, but ultimately quite graceful in following team orders. And the front page of the Daily Telegraph sports section is magnifique, how Europe's Ryder Cup band of brothers produced a victory for the ages in Paris.
Yeah, we're sticking with the golf now. Let's bring you some of the post-event reaction. McGinley, Joe and Nathan here. All our Ryder Cup coverage is brought to you in association with Now TV. Only pay for the days that you want and stream all 10 Sky Sports channels with the Now TV Sky Sports Pass. Here is Paul McGinley, Joe and Nathan from Paris discussing Europe's emphatic 2018 Ryder Cup win.
Strange week for Rory McIlroy. He played all 5 matches yet again at a Ryder Cup, ended up winning 2 points, but lost here in 18 against Justin Thomas earlier. A lot of missed putts again. What was your overall sense of his performance?
I thought he was tired, a bit like the American team. He was jaded. I think he didn't come in with the same vibrancy. I thought there was a little bit of a hangover from his performance on the last round of the FedEx last week, when he played with Tiger in the last round and it went badly for him and he had a poor day. I think he came in on a little bit of a low on the back of that, and he nearly got going. Sergio dragged him up on the second day and he nearly got going, and then he kind of flatlined a little bit again. I thought he played decent today. He didn't play great. He was up against, this guy, watch this guy, Justin Thomas. He is a superb competitor. Not just is he a brilliant ball striker and a big hitter and all that, he has got a heart of a lion. Watch this guy go forward in the game.
He was chipping in and everything.
He's competitive. When I talk about competitive instincts, I can sense it, I can watch it. I'm looking for the moments. I'm looking for moments, big moments, and if they can do it. And there was none bigger moment leading the team out when the Ryder Cup was a little bit rocky from a European perspective and looking good for an American. This guy had to win his game. He had the honour on 17. McIlroy made an unbelievable up and down on 17. This guy stood up in the 18th and he took out driver. And I said to the guys, I was watching it in the green room, and I said, this is not the play. There's nowhere to go with driver for a guy at this distance. And he hit it down a sliver of fairway and said, okay, now let's see what you got, Rory. That's what forced the issue. When I talk about match play moments, that forced the issue on Rory. That put a massive amount of pressure on Rory. And Rory made the right call. 3 wood was the right call for him. It wasn't to follow him up with the same drive. It was a 3 wood. But, the pressure was huge at that moment. And a leak to the right, plug lie, and game over.
Cruel and unfair as it is, one of the lasting images of McIlroy from this Ryder Cup will be him turning to the crowd and saying, I can putt. Heat of the moment, he might regret doing that. The putter was a bit of an issue today. We just thought it was noticeable. If someone had shouted at Rory McIlroy in the crowd, you can't drive the ball, he wouldn't have even risen to it. But it's clearly
the crowd would have been laughed out of the place.
Well, yeah, but it's clearly a sore point. It clearly was something that really got his back up, and funny enough, it kind of distracted him almost yesterday. But in broad terms, what's he going to do in the off season now, Paul, do you think, with his game?
Well, that's with Rory. his putting stats have been actually pretty good. He's pretty good. I mean, you look at his stats, and I've trawled through all of these stats. I do them all the time, particularly for this Ryder Cup for all the 12 players on the European team. His putting stats are actually really good compared to where they've been in previous years. He holds some good putts. There's not a whole lot wrong with his putting. What Rory has lost compared to what he had before, I call it pointy elbows, is that competitive edge that he's had earlier in his career. It's not quite the same. The other guys have raised the bar, they're putting it up to him. Guys like Justin Thomas, we just saw it on the 18th hole there. You know, he hit the drive as long as Rory McIlroy would do. Rory used to dominate guys and intimidate them with his driving. So the other guys have raised the bar, and that's made things difficult for Rory. He hasn't got his head around that yet, and he hasn't, you know, and I keep saying, you know, those pointy elbows, that's what he had. He has that instinct in him. It's lying dormant at the moment. It's hard to say it's lying dormant because look at the year he's had. I mean, there's only probably 2 or 3 guys in the whole of golf who've created more world ranking points than Rory McIlroy this year. His level of consistency is probably better than it's ever been. He's just not winning as much as he often did.
Kill him with our expectations, I guess.
Well, there's a lot of that goes around him with the expectations. There's no doubt about that. And playing number 1 today, he had a massive amount of pressure on him. A lot of expectation on him playing out in that number 1 position.
17.5 to 10.5 is how it finished up at the 42nd Ryder Cup. It's been a long week, Nathan Murphy. We are sitting here where they do their interviews. So we've just had the victorious European team in here and a more sombre US team in here doing their press conferences. If anyone's worried, I'm sure you would have seen it by now, Phil Mickelson did not throw Jim Furyk under the bus. So that's a big relief for Jim. He's fared better than Tom Watson 4 years ago. A comprehensive win in the end for Europe, Nathan. There's a real sense that for one, amongst other things, but for one, the US team never seemed to get to grips with this course.
No, which in a way is strange because after the opening morning 4 balls on Friday, they led 3-1. They put out their stars early on and they delivered. And then it all just went horribly wrong. Europe won 8 matches in a row, unprecedented run. And it was a case on that Friday afternoon that they started to lose holes very quickly. So they went 1 down and next thing you knew they were 4 down. And that was a pattern that developed throughout the 3 days. So that then asks the question, was there a little bit of character missing at times when things got tough? Why couldn't they respond?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, one of the reasons given is that the wind kicked up certainly from Friday afternoon on, and then the whole thing just got away from them. And I mean, it's an extraordinary thing really, because we all went into this Ryder Cup feeling that the course, I mean, so we both thought the US would probably prevail. You thought it'd be a cakewalk. I thought the course might bring it back a touch in favour of the Europeans, but not to this extent. So for Thomas Bjorn, I mean, pretty much every decision he made has been vindicated massively from the pairings, you know, Hatton and Casey, and of course Molinari and Fleetwood. I mean, Molinari and Fleetwood, Mollywood are the story
boys
of the tournament. The way he stuck with Rory and didn't make a story out of the Rory McIlroy situation that Friday morning, no birdie with per Thorbjorn Olesen, and he stuck with Rory for the afternoon, didn't panic, and nursed Rory back to a respectable Ryder Cup, you know.
2 points.
2 points is fine. And then the way he set up the course. I mean, everything Bjorn did on the face of it, everything that Bjorn did that we can kind of say, well, that was Bjorn, it seems to have come off pretty well.
The wildcards delivered. Sergio Garcia is now the most successful Ryder Cup player of all time. And there was some raised eyebrows when Bjorn said at the time of the wildcard announcement that Sergio was going to be the heartbeat, the Sevi of this team. And you kind of like, that's not really Sergio. But it seems actually he was a bit. That he was able to take people under his wing. And that's what you wanted. And when Rory was going and finding it tough, Sergio was there for him. Sergio helped him along, as did Ian Poulter. Every single one of this European team won a point. Whereas you look at the American wildcards, they failed miserably. 3 of the 4 didn't win a single point. Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, Bryson DeChambeau, not a single point between them. It's quite remarkable how they underachieved.
On the one hand, so say take Mickelson, who was the big flop of the whole thing. On the one hand, there are comparisons to be made with Mickelson and Sergio. And Mickelson's won a WGC this year, so arguably he'd had a bit more form more recently than Sergio, but neither had much form. Sergio comes here, lights it up. Phil said that I think he shot a 63 about a month ago, and since then he's had no game. And I was on the range yesterday. Time moves very slowly here. Feels like 6 weeks ago. I was on the range yesterday. Last night, Phil, who didn't play at all yesterday, was on the range. Just him and his caddy and his coach. And Phil turned to the coach at one stage and said, we're going to have to start from scratch here. Swing's gone, basically. And so Furyk can feel a bit unlucky that the form of someone like Furyk collapsed and he's looking over at Sergio, who's turned into Superman again, and can think, ugh. Now, you could certainly say to Furyk, well, this course was obviously not going to suit Phil. Like, that is a criticism you could still make. We got an interview with Paul McGinley, and he was saying, like, you look at Zach Johnson or Matt Kuchar, who could have been picked, and McGinley as a European was very glad they weren't.
And it is all hindsight, because if Jim Furyk had stood up 3 weeks ago and picked Zach Johnson as one of his picks, even though Johnson had shown a little bit of form and would have been so well suited to playing this course, he would have been laughed out of the joint. Everybody wanted Phil Mickelson to be here. There was an assumption that he would do what Sergio did, that he would find a little bit of something. Even today, we spent the morning watching Phil on the range, slicing it, and his coach standing over him. This is half an hour before tea time, still looking for something. And even still, a bit of you inside is going, maybe he'll just turn it on.
Just do it. And the amazing dynamic of Phil here, honestly, a few slices in there by professional standards. Me and Murphy have hit worse slices, it has to be said. And right next to him, Francesco Molinari, serene, calm, Dave Alred there, and they're just going through their routine. Nothing needs tweaking or fixing, and it's like, it's almost not fair that he has to go out and play Molinari in front of the whole world. I guess the other point to make is Tiger. You know, like, Tiger has dominated the week in two different ways. He, is heralded for the first half of the week. Every player in here has asked about him, and then he's 0 for 4. I mean, Tiger Woods has won one. He's been on the winning side of a Ryder Cup once in his entire career. Tiger Woods. He said up here on the stage about a half hour ago, honestly, yes, I'm a bit tired. I played 7 weeks out of 9.
Which is totally fair. And he looked like he looked at the start of the year. He looked sort of actually like he looked when he was back injured, when he always felt like it was an old man and it was all a struggle.
Very deliberate in his movements.
Like, the sheer emotional high of winning the Tour Championship last week surely took a huge amount out of him. And the very fact that 11 of that American team were playing in Atlanta last week at the Tour Championship again just meant they came here, they were jet lagged, they're out in course Tuesday morning. Listen, pampered billionaires, millionaires, you've no sympathy for them. But this is high elite sport. You need to be mentally right. And listen, the course is the big talking point, I think, out of this week. Phil, Tiger, all of that, is that the course was a huge success. It was interesting golf. It's not what American golf seems to want.
No, it's true. They want birdies and low rough. Spieth, it seems, well, we have to be careful. We don't know. Okay, there's rumblings that Spieth and Reed haven't played together, and it seems maybe that's more coming from the Spieth side. He was asked about it in the press conference, and Reed was sitting all the way down there, and Spieth was sitting about here, and Reed sort of looked down and said, hey guys, when a journalist asked why they hadn't played together. They were so brilliant together a couple of years ago, and Spieth gave a reasonable answer. Furyk tried to interject and say, we made our decisions and we're happy with our pairings, but maybe that's a slight issue. It's not the reason they lost, but it was another thing, I suppose. I guess we're at the point of kind of, we will talk about this at length for a couple of weeks. There's loads going on. To sum up the Ryder Cup, I would put it to you, it wasn't a great one, because a great one you feel has to be close. It was obviously a great win for Europe. It was very entertaining across the first day in particular. First day was incredibly good. If we'd had that drama and that, the Europe up at 3-1, then lose 3-1, then come out when the foursomes 4-0, that kind of drama the first day was an extraordinary Ryder Cup day. I mean, really as good as anything. But you would have to say, once it went 10-6 yesterday, and there was never a real genuine sense that Team USA were going to come back into it. You can't really say it was a great Ryder Cup, although so many things about it were great.
Yeah, probably sums it up. There was Tiger's Eagle today, which was sort of around a half hour or so, where it looked like America may win the first 6 matches and could well turn this on her head. But that was a very, very short, fleeting moment. The Europeans they just delivered. They just know how to play Ryder Cup golf. Emotionally, I know it's this sort of out there thing that is hard to grasp, but Ian Poulter and Sergio Garcia, there's something within them.
Ian Poulter bet the world number 1 today. He beat him.
That shouldn't happen.
No, that shouldn't happen in a million years. The crowd were great, course was great, the weather was fantastic.
It was an unbelievable venue. As an event, it was a massive success for Le Golf National, for France, for Paris. The
stands, I mean, the whole structures of how tournament golf is for the spectators now is getting better year on year. And I suppose the real highlight for me, of course, was sharing an Airbnb with Nathan Murphy.
Just gets better and better and better.
Thank you for booking an Airbnb where we had to hold the shower head. That was the highlight for me.
What was your problem with that?
I'm not.
You're big time now. I'm not holding my own shower head. Go back to your college days, Joe.
Trying to wash and and
We
rub.
don't need a graphic. We don't need a graphic. It was fine.
It was fine.
We had a lovely time in Versailles.
We did. No, it was real. It was lovely to go back and reminisce about two years ago.
2 years ago, yeah.
So that's it. 17.5 to 11.5. And it's now going to be 29 years before the Americans will have a chance to win on European soil, and we go back to America in 2 years' time and see if presumably Padraig Harrington can mastermind a win in Whistling Straits. So Nathan, thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, good stuff from the lads. I hope they enjoyed it. And Darren is here to talk, just to pick up a little bit on the Patrick Reed stuff. Patrick Reed's wife, famously, obviously, has been, you know, a big supporter of his, is how I'm going to delicately put that.
Vocal supporter.
And is, you know, the family is now estranged. The family dedicated their lives turning Patrick Reed into the tiger parenting that you need to become a world golfer. No longer part of it. She's got his back.
She is the manager and the man running his life, and she's actually an account purported to be her. Has been tweeting over the weekend, suggesting that there's a bit of beef between Reed and Spieth.
Just as the lads were saying, there was a question about it, and it was like, ooh, what's going on?
Yeah, well, they were at opposite ends of the table, which was quite strange. But basically, Reed kind of picked up on this point himself in an interview with the New York Times. He's pointing the finger at the USA captain Jim Furyk and Jordan Spieth. He claims that Spieth wouldn't play with him because of a personal problem between the pair, not going into actually what the problem is. They had a formidable partnership with 2 previous Ryder Cup and 2 President Cups as well. They won 8 of the 12 matchups they were paired together in. Reed said, "The issue is obviously with Jordan not wanting to play with me. I don't have any issue with Jordan when it comes right down to it. I don't care if I like the person I'm paired with or if the person likes me, as long as it works and it sets up the team for success. Every day I say leave your egos at the door. The Europeans do that much better than we do." Reed also unhappy with Jim Furyk, that the fact he set him out for 2 sessions, and he says, "For somebody as successful in the Ryder Cups as I am, I don't think it's smart to sit me out twice."
Love Patrick Reed. Just love that cockiness. Like, that is the reason why we hate America, or we're supposed to hate America. There wasn't enough of that all weekend for us to really enjoy absolutely destroying the United States of America.
I just love how quick they are to blame each other. It's like a race to figure out whose fault it is. We'll hear from Furyk in a moment, but first, here's Tiger Woods actually taking some responsibility.
Those are 4 points that aren't going towards our side, it's going towards their side. And to have a Ryder Cup in that way, you know, for me personally, it doesn't feel very good because I didn't help my teammates earn any points.
I think we have a great team. I would take them right back into another Ryder Cup and play it all over again if I could. You can call me crazy, but I have every belief that these guys could get it done. And I still do, and I still would again.
Jim Furyk not getting rained on the way Tom Watson was. It's like, the team didn't play well. They're a great team. What are you going to do?
Did it help, though, in terms of the rain on Tom Watson, that it was Phil Mickelson who was dancing the little rain dance?
Maybe.
Like, doing the karate kicks.
Yeah,
the proverbial karate kicks.
Far more influential than Patrick Reed is. Like, once Phil Mickelson said what he said about Tom Watson, then it was just open season for the American press to just go 2 feet in on Tom Watson.
That's a fair point.
On to the soccer, and the Bows manager Keith Long was left fuming with a late penalty call which cost them a place in the FAI Cup final on the night. The Gypsies will get another bite at the cherry in a replay. They were leading 1-0 when the ref awarded a penalty for Dara Leahy's challenge on Conor McCarthy in the box. The game finished 1-1. Manager Keith Long felt the ref got it wrong.
Well, time will tell, won't it? You know, so it's tough on the boys tonight because Dara is devastated in there. He's full sure that he made a clean connection with the ball, and we're disappointed in the manner in which we've conceded the penalty and obviously not gone through to the final tonight. But we'll go again. We're 100% confident in our own ability and what we have in the dressing room. I'm sure we'll bounce back and give Cork a good game. We want to play in big games, and you know, Monday week in Turner's Cross is another opportunity to play in another big game. Yeah, if we're going to get to the final, like I say, we'll have to do it the hard way.
2 Ireland internationals started in Cardiff's 2-1 Premier League loss to Burnley at the weekend. Greg Cunningham and Harry Arthur could do little as they lost for the 5th time in 7 games this season. That result leaves Cardiff second from bottom in the Premier League table this morning. Well, Diarmuid Connolly, a sight for sore eyes for Dublin fans. He made his long-awaited return.
Very in the lead, Darren.
That was your lead.
In the lead, come on.
We needed up high, but he returned for St Vincent's. They beat Castleknock in the Dublin Senior Football Championship. Second half sub for the Merino men, 121-19 victors in the end. They faced Judes in the last 4. They knocked out Ballymun Kickham's, Ballybone St Enda's and Kilmacud Crokes Loughorns in the other semi-final. The Fina and Sylvester's respectively bow out.
Sorry, so what's the draw, the semi-final?
The semi-final draw, it'll be Judes and it'll be Crokes.
Okay, so
Judes, Crokes, Bowden, Jude's Vincent's, yeah.
Crokes and Bowden will be an amazing semi-final.
Ballybone are going to win this thing.
Kickham's gone out as a big surprise.
Huge surprise. They would have been favourites in my eyes, but got a feeling with the Basquel brothers that sort of a lot to be seen here in terms of people who talk about Dublin football and know what's coming next. So they could be key to the 6 in a row to 7 in a row for Dublin and potentially getting the title back for Ballybudden.
It's an interesting year as well if Vincent's go on and actually win the final, because last year the senior All-Ireland Inter-County final was the first time that there wasn't a Vincent's representative on the playing panel, on the starting team.
Yeah, it's true. That's an argument why no county should be doing this nonsense of naming your captain after who wins the county championship. Like, even imagine if Connolly was there. Imagine Dublin went the way that Kerry and Kilkenny go now, and it's like, sorry, Stephen, but Diarmuid Connolly's captain now. Like, imagine how ridiculous that would sound to Stephen Cluxton, or with the divisions that were caused in the Dublin camp.
Maybe captaincy doesn't matter. Maybe it's all a lot of nonsense.
Maybe it does matter.
Invented by the English media to blow up David Beckham. Darren, thanks very much. We're talking football next. Oh, one more story, quick.
I've got one more story. Fight fans, they were angrier than they usually are over the weekend. The main event of Bellator 206 was not shown in Ireland or the UK because it ran over time. Channel 5 broadcast the card from San Jose, California. When the show came off air at 10 p.m. Pacific time or 6 a.m. here, it changed abruptly to Peppa Pig. Their scheduled children's programme kicked in at 6 a.m. and fight fans not happy, as you can see from that tweet on screen.
Well, Ger was happy.
There you go. Thanks for that, Darren.
Cheers, Ger.
Football next. Johnny Ward and Dan McDonald join Will O'Callaghan for Saturdays Off the Ball. Here they are talking about the future of José Mourinho.
Considering both of you feel that Mourinho has now almost reached the end of the road, how much road is actually left for him at United now?
Well, I think we were speaking about this a couple of weeks back, and I sort of felt the next crisis, like the next really major defeat, he'd be in bother, and I think today's probably ticks the box. I don't know, there's an international break coming up, so if there's a time, there comes a sort of stick or twist point to a degree where, like, if the season's run away from you. And I think, did he leave Chelsea in December, the season that he went? I'm not sure. I think it was maybe around that time. I could be wrong. Open to correction.
I think it was December, yeah.
But there are these windows where you can make the change, and once you go beyond a certain one, there is a possibility they get a bit of form together and a sort of a deceiving run, but it doesn't. You're always sort of one strike from being out at that point. So I mean, Pogba isn't going anywhere, until January. So he's there. So I think it could be pretty soon. It definitely seems like there's a proper decision to be made now.
Okay, so here's what's coming up. Manchester United hammered 3-1 by West Ham. The Zizou call, Jose watch, Pogba. It's all Manchester United with a little bit of Man City as well. Pep City trouble. I'm going to talk a little bit about that with Andy Mitten in just a minute. I can run you through the results from the weekend if you missed any of this. The big one there from your perspective, Owen, is a 2-0 victory for Arsenal against Watford. It was 0-0 with 80 minutes on the clock, but your boys, well, they know how to grind it out now under their new manager.
Well, the big one for me was West Ham beating Manchester United. As you know, I've been on that bandwagon since they got their first win of the season against Everton. And
you think West Ham is a real deal?
I've said it multiple times that they are rocketing up the table.
Let's take this scores back up for us there. Sorry, Spurs 2-0 winners at Huddersfield. Everton back, are they? Maybe? Now that Richarlison's ban is over, they're good again. 3-0 winners at home to Fulham. Man City, a routine 2-0 victory against Brighton and Hove Albion. Leicester, 2-0 winners at Newcastle. Something bad is going to happen to the Newcastle situation very soon. I mean, it already has happened. His name is Mike Ashley. Wolves beat Southampton by 2-0.
Matt Doherty amazing again.
Chelsea, yeah, apparently sensational. Chelsea and Liverpool drew 1-1. Daniel Sturridge kind of half celebrating a little bit. And then yesterday, it finished Cardiff 1, Burnley 2 in, one of those games that really makes you wonder about anybody who hypes up the Premier League as the best league in the world.
Yeah, I don't know. We can have that conversation later. I think the Premier League is back to being the best league in the world. Like, honestly, especially on watching Saturday night, it did get me thinking that now that Ronaldo has left La Liga, I think the common idea was that Premier League was second to La Liga in terms of the quality of Europe's top leagues, right? And I think you look at the quality of the top six in England right now, I think it's overtaken La Liga as the best league in Europe once again. Like, Saturday night was a cracker. I really enjoyed that game. Like, such high quality. And like, when you get down to the lower rungs, like if you get the Spanish version of Cardiff versus Burnley, it's not going to be great either, Ger.
Well, might be a bit easier on the eye.
Will it really? It was 3 goals in that game.
The ball will be on the ground a good bit. The tackling will be less agricultural. There'll be a central midfielder who can pass the ball to one of his teammates.
Yeah, are you saying that Jeff Hendrick and Harry Arter aren't essential midfielders who can pass the ball to their teammates?
A reminder, of course, for people out there who get in touch with us every day, going, you're on the telly box on my phone now. We are, but we're also streaming live to you as if we were a radio station. You just go on to offtheball.com and hit play on that, and then you can stream us through whatever it is that you listen to. If you want to wire us through your car system, or however it is that you listen to your radio these days, it's basically digital radio. And we do try and describe everything that we're showing when we put pictures up, so that you can have that full radio experience.
Yeah, it's true. Just on that Matt Doherty thing from Saturday, like himself and Adama Traore has kind of sparked up one of the great modern partnerships on one wing in the Premier League. Just kind of out of the blue, really. Who would have thought that at the start of the season we'd be talking about, Matt Doherty and Adama Traore as this beautiful kind of fledgling thing?
Adama Traore, the great lost Aston Villa
man.
Yeah.
The fastest player in the Premier League.
So exciting when he signed. A bunch of players signed. It was, I think Diarmuid Connolly was involved, and he signed a bunch of these very talented but young players, and they had an English manager who was like, I don't want these players. These are not the players who are going to make me survive in the Premier League.
Kim Sherwood.
And Sherwood was gone. All of the players, I think, pretty much were gone. And instead of finding a manager who could work with players, the system is wrong when you're buying players the manager doesn't want, but Adama Traore is better than anybody they have playing for them at the moment.
Is he better than Jack Grealish?
Yeah, I think he is.
It's close. Well, Jack Grealish is clearly the best player.
They could also play together.
Yeah, but that would be quite terrifying for any sort of championship defence, without question. But Matt Doherty is Ireland's best player right now. Current form, in terms of the excitement, in terms of what he brings to any team. I think
Seamus Coleman.
I think there's an argument that Matt Doherty in current form, Coleman is clearly in terms of skill base, in terms of the heights that a player can get to, he is Ireland's best player. But in terms of the season so far, it's very early days, but the 2018-19 Club Player of the Year from an Irish perspective is Matt Doherty, and he's winning that race by some distance at the moment. He's been outstanding so far. It seems as such a sort of, I don't know, barstool conversation to have around who or what formation can they fit around Ireland's two best players. But seriously, this is a matter of actual emergency when it comes to this.
No, I mean, that's exactly what the manager should be doing. You would hope that it's not just on the barstool, that it's at breakfast, at lunch, in the middle of the training session. Okay, we want you two to play in this team. How's this going to work? Are you going to be on the right side of midfield? Is it going to be 3-5-2? Are you going to play on the right side of 3-5-2? Is Seamus Coleman? I mean, in modern international football, that might not be the worst thing.
Yeah, the thing that Keith Andrews and Gary Breen were saying on the Keith Andrews show 2 weeks ago was that you can't actually play Matt Doherty in that right midfield position because Breen reckons he can't really play in the half turn. Whereas can Seamus Coleman do that? Maybe he can a little bit better, but that's got to be factored in. But maybe playing on the half turn isn't exactly something a right midfielder does for Ireland all that often, given how deep we sit.
No, and what about 3-5-2, where Coleman is the third, or one of them is the third and the three?
Yeah, the problem there in that formation is the two. Finding a one at the moment is proving a pretty tough task. Finding the two.
I'm sticking Richard Kilwing because he's got the beard.
In centre forward?
No, centre back.
All right, but the two, the
3-5-2. Okay, sorry, yeah. Richard Kilwing could do a job up there for the last 10 minutes.
I wasn't being overly facetious when I said, do you mean centre forward?
Oh, God. Okay. Let's turn our attention to Manchester United. The performance at the weekend comes on the back of a long run of just mediocre performances from the team at the moment. Andy Mitten joins us to talk to us a little bit about what's going on here. I was talking earlier on, Andy, about low points, and over the last couple of seasons we've had you on at various low points. A 3-1 defeat to West Ham is bad, but it's the team that was picked and the manner of the performance, I think, that makes it far worse. Is that the general feeling that you have at the moment?
Yeah, it's not an isolated defeat. Football teams lose matches, even the best ones, as Barcelona and Real Madrid have found in the last week. United are now 9 points off the top of the league after only 7 games, been knocked out of the League Cup, which is the worst start since 1989-90 when the team finished 13th. In the league, it's as bad as the start under David Moyes, but Moyes had to play Chelsea, Liverpool and Manchester City in his first 5 matches, and it is just baffling because there's a lot of very, very good players there. They're not scoring, they're not playing well. There's negative headlines enveloping the club every single day, and the fans are confused. They don't know who to blame. they carry on turning up at matches. They're supportive for the team. They've been supportive for the manager. Online, it's very different. I think online, the fans will get rid of the manager tomorrow, and most of the players and the executives. And it's very, very frustrating for Manchester United fans. We're at the first day in October, and the league is already done. Nobody expects the team to win the Champions League this year, and this is a team that have spent a huge amount of money in the last couple of years. It's not a black and white argument. Everyone has gotten their point of view. Paul Pogba has been offered to Barcelona twice in the last 10 weeks. He wouldn't have been amenable to a move if he was very, very happy at Manchester United. Barca do not have the money to buy Paul Pogba, not to fund his wages, not to fund a likely transfer fee. Manchester United don't want to sell him. At least the club don't. I'm sure the manager would. The manager has got his arguments, but he's got a very, very miserable figure since the pre-season in America. He downplayed expectations, accurately so, but football fans like to believe. They don't want the pre-season optimism crushing. And while the manager would have liked more players and fans would have backed him there, he's already brought in 2 central defenders. He wanted another one this summer for £30 million each, both of which have completely failed so far. So there's so many strands to this frustration, compounded by the club's 2 main rivals, Liverpool and Manchester City, playing brilliant football, playing really well. And it's just a very frustrating time for United fans. Fans have been spoiled beyond their wildest dreams. They've seen the team win absolutely everything. I think most accept that football is cyclical. No team carries on winning everything forever. But this is a hangover which is now into its 6th year and seems to be getting worse, not better.
It did seem to me that the team selection in the Young Boys Byrne game was the right team selection for that game, but also in terms of style of play and fitting all the players that you have into a system that will get the best out of their available talents. We haven't seen that same team play or that shape applied to the team since, have we?
No, I was in Byrne, and the first 20 minutes it was all Byrne, and the United players were slipping on the plastic pitch. But then their experience in Europe told, bang, 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 they take the chances, they score the goals. I spoke to Anthony Martial after the game. He was buzzing because the fans had been singing his name. It was his first goal since January. I spoke to Paul Pogba after the game. He was delightfully polite, which is going to be to people like me. He's hardly going to want to rock the boat. And the performance in Byrne was a very good one. In the Premier League, there are far stronger teams than Byrne, and that's where they're being judged on a weekly basis. But it's baffling watching the first 5 minutes against West Ham. It was like watching Manchester United in their pomp when a lower league team visits Old Trafford. West Ham was straight out the blocks, flying at Manchester United because they know they could, because they know there's fragility there. They know that the defence has got all kinds of problems, and they know that a different team is being picked every single week. And West Ham have had massive troubles themselves. And the fans, the match-going fans, they really have backed the manager. He's now into his 3rd season, and he said to me in his first season, judge me after 3 years. And I felt that's a long time, but it's not an unreasonable amount of time. But I can't see any clear evidence that things are getting better to where Manchester United should be. And they should be one of the best teams in world football. If you look at the size of the club, the revenues, the talent, everything about the club is geared towards providing a platform for success. And yet, the team is failing to do that. And yet, the club remains hugely profitable, still tying in sponsorship deals. I spoke to somebody last week who's very familiar with the situation, and they said, if the team are winning trophies, that's a bonus on top of a very sturdy, strong, profit-making business. And I was almost in disbelief at hearing that, but that might show the attitude of some of the people running the club. The club is still nearly £500 million in debt, and they've effectively become a media company, selling rights, distribution rights for the games domestically and in Europe, and also sponsorship rights around the world. And United commercially are trailblazers. Every single club in the world, and I speak to people at Madrid and at Barcelona, they're the only 2 clubs of United size in the world. I think Bayern Munich, Liverpool are on that next tier, massive clubs themselves. And they still say United are the commercial trailblazers. But where it matters on the pitch, the team are failing. The transfer strategy, well, there isn't one. Players come with very good reputations. Someone like Alexis Sanchez, he's a top player. I mean, Barca let him go, but he was good at Arsenal. He's failed miserably in Manchester. He just has. He's not scoring goals. He doesn't look comfortable, trying too hard, if anything. And he would be an example, and one of several, of people who are failing at Manchester United. One
quick point. Jacob Steinberg tweeted after the game, Paul Pogba's response when journalists asked him to stop for a chat after Saturday's defeat to West Ham: "You want me dead? Sounds like it's great fun at Manchester United." That's the tweet from Steinberg. So, we've seen the clock, the doomsday clock with Mourinho. It effectively starts the moment he takes the job. We're kind of way past midnight at this point. Is this imminent, do you think, knowing the way the Glazers have behaved since they've taken over Manchester United? It seems that they've had patience in the past, that they've waited for the end of season, or at least that they've kind of put things in place later in the season than the 1st of October. But are we that close to a decision being made at the moment, do you think, about Mourinho?
Well, the first point about Pogba, the players feel that their words are twisted and taken out of context. So that's why you had that reaction. And they don't like elements of the British media. They feel that they're sensationalised, and they're very reluctant to say anything close to how they truly feel. Imminent, I don't think the decision's been made. I think it's impossible to say. I think even today, Ed Woodward would love José Mourinho to be a success for Manchester United. They gave him a new contract at the start of this year, one he was happy to sign, and I'm told he's still determined to do well and to be a success at Manchester United. But it is a results business, and the results are failing. And if United continue as they are doing, way off the pace of the league at the start of the season, then the descent will grow. And it's not just about the results, it's the style of football. It doesn't look like Manchester United. I don't honestly believe a panacea can be found by bringing a new manager in. I think he'll inherit the same problems, the same structural issues, the same recruitment issues, and it's the same attitude among the fans. There are elements who celebrate the new signings almost as if they won a trophy, but that doesn't solve anything either. That buzz lasts a week or two with all this flurry of social media interactions, but that doesn't mean much either. It may appeal to sponsors, but it doesn't contribute necessarily to a winning football team. So people might say now Zinedine Zidane, well, he can't even speak English. He's a great coach who inherited a great football team. But would you take the Man United job? His legacy at the moment is 3 European Cups in less than 3 seasons at Madrid. And I've spoken to people in football. I do that every single day. And when I speak about coaches, the word is that job is almost impossible to do because the expectations are so high, and the reality of the job is it's going to be so difficult to do.
You mean the reality of the job at Manchester United is so difficult to do?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
The thing is,
it shouldn't be, because you're afforded patience, you're afforded money, you get good support from the fans. This isn't Spain or Italy where the managerial fuse is so short that pressure is starting after 2 or 3 defeats. You do get a bit longer at Manchester United.
But I would contend that Real Madrid is just as tough a chalice to sort of take upon. Like, I mean, it's, you look at where Zinedine Zidane came from, and he obviously inherited a fantastic squad. And to be honest with you, there's part of me that agrees with you that is a risk in itself. If Manchester United wants some sort of stability, there is a huge amount of risk that comes with Zidane, with the fact that he hasn't proven himself with a struggling squad. It was a strong bunch of players he had at Real Madrid, obviously, and allied with that, the idea that, he doesn't speak English. But it's also a very tough job, the Real Madrid job. We've seen many top-class managers struggle in the political environment that exists at the Bernabeu at the moment. And Zinedine Zidane managed to navigate those choppy waters quite well. And ultimately, if you're trying to play a political game while getting your players just in the straight and narrow for Manchester United, you could look to a lot worse places than a man like Zidane.
I've got a huge amount of respect for him. I saw him closely working in Spain. But he was already living in Madrid. He spoke Spanish. He was a hero at the club. He was a hero to the club president, the man who really pulls the levers at Real Madrid. He knew the players. He'd managed the B team. He knew the current players. He knew the club inside out. He knew the structure. He knew the politics. He knew who to trust, who not to trust. He spoke the language. That gave him lots of advantages. And he walked into a far better squad than anybody would at Manchester United. I'm not saying that the United job is not unattractive. It clearly is. It's one of the biggest jobs in world football, and you will be handsomely remunerated for taking that job. But I think there's a counter view to that as well.
What do you think happens now, Andy? What's the medium term here?
If the results, and that's not to be judged primarily, if they carry on as they have been doing, the pressure will continue to build and build and build, and you'll have a similar situation to Van Gaal 3 years ago, where United line up another manager, Paul Pogba. Whether he stays or goes is doubtful. I think his biggest problem is he earns too much money. And while he's a French World Cup winner, and there are people at Barcelona who like him, and there are others who just don't think he'll fit into their system. I think if you offered him a chance to leave tomorrow, he would take it. I think he'd want to play in one of the best teams in the world. Manchester United are certainly not that at the moment. The only thing that can soothe this current misery would be a win of results. 8 straight wins, and football fans change the tune pretty quickly. But José Mourinho, however downbeat he was pre-season, he's turning out to be accurate. But he must shoulder some of the blame as well. He's got top class players there. And you're losing at home to Derby in the League Cup. That's just not good enough. A Derby team full of fresh-faced youngsters who love nothing more than playing football, and they're playing attacking football. And that used to be Manchester United. And now the mood and the tension is negative. The club is surrounded by negative headlines every day. It doesn't help anyone. If those negatives were positives, I'm sure Manchester United would be much more effective. Yet I've been saying this for the last 1, 2, 3, 4 months.
Andy, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
That's Andy Mitten there. You can read his stuff, of course, on United We Stand and ESPN and a bunch of other places. You should follow him on Twitter if you have any interest in football whatsoever. Now, going to talk rugby next with Alan Quinlan. First, though, here's Ollie Canning talking to Maura Trass and Nikialig at Saturday night's Electric Ireland Minor Star Awards.
You're probably in the unique position that you can give a perspective on that, because, for example, there's your brother Joe, who's a few years younger, who's still currently playing, and then you have a nephew Jack as well, who was involved in minors. Was it last year or 2 years ago? Last year. Yeah. So you can see the generational shift there. So between the three of you markers, what do you think has been the big difference, say, between your time, Joe's time, and now Jack's time?
Well, I suppose one of the big things is, I retired from inter-county hurling in 2010, and it was getting to the stage where the demands and the time requirements were increasing all the time, and we've seen the recent survey there where inter-county players have now to dedicate something like over 30 hours during the week. That's on top of if you do have a full-time job, that's on top of your day job. Now, if you're a student, maybe you have a bit more leeway as regards your other commitments outside of the hurling, and we probably have seen lots of teams, their average age is starting to drop because we've seen it with the Limerick team. The majority of that panel are probably still students at the moment, and it probably gives them a little bit more time to dedicate to the inter-county scene. But for me, I suppose that's one of the changes I've seen, is the time commitments required. And the other change, as I just mentioned, is the scrutiny and the criticism that comes through social media. Back in my day, if somebody thought you had a bad game, they'd probably come up and say it to your face. And a lot of the time, a lot of people wouldn't say it to your face. But now, players are very accessible through social media channels, and I think it's something that maybe the GAA needs to consider. I know some inter-county teams may have somebody in the backroom panel that can do some education on the whole background of social media and what how seriously do you really take it. So for me, these young players, probably more pressure on these young players than I would have experienced when I was growing up.
Yeah, always good stuff there from Ollie Canning with Maura Trassa at the Electric Ireland Minor Star Awards on Saturday evening. Now, calling all students, pay attention. I realise it might be a little bit early in the morning for you, but if you know somebody who should be awake at this hour of the morning and who might be interested in this, then pay attention. We've teamed up with Vodafone X to fuel your passion for sport by giving you the chance to join Team Off the Ball for a full week. You're going to get to see what happens behind the scenes of a show, attend a press conference, help report at a match, and even feature as co-host of a show. Suddenly Owen is switching uncomfortably on his seat, going a little hot under the collar there.
My work experience time is surely done.
If that wasn't enough, you'll also receive an iPhone 8 with a year subscription to Vodafone X Sport, giving you access to 7 dedicated Sky Sports channels. To be given the chance to win, submit your demo tape and details to offtheball.com/Vodafone X. So it is the opportunity of a lifetime. And believe me, we could do with some new people around here. Alan, how are you?
Very good, Jared. Owen, yourself? Owen, how are you? I'll give you a quick kind of how are you?
So Munster are going to win everything this season. The swashbuckling, the final piece of the jigsaw was Joey Carberry to unleash their backs. That was it. That's all we needed.
Yeah, you're as bad as Adrian Barry, every week trying that crack with me. Were Ulster useless or were Munster very good?
Well, both, right?
Yeah,
I mean, both are
look,
definitely true.
To be fair, somebody said to me on Friday, Ulster will, have a right chance of winning at Thomond Park on Saturday. And I didn't see it. I knew there would be. I knew they were better than they were the week before against Cardiff. That was a really poor performance. Strong Munster team, lacking a little bit of cohesion maybe. No need to panic, I said after that. I'm sure they had a big assessment during the week, and probably excuse me, the most frustrating thing for probably a coach or a team that you visually look at is poor defence, because that kind of sets your stall out. Sometimes you can be beaten by a good side, or like Ray Lilo was brilliant for Cardiff that night and he's great footwork and stuff, but some of the defence was really, really poor. So that kind of ensued that there was going to be a reaction, and I think it's just a pity that it was so lopsided that it was great for Munster, but did they get a true test? Were they able to go, where are we at here ahead of this week? But look, you can only play what's in front of you, and I think Johan van Graan was asked last week, at the European launch, the season was going very well. I think it was Rory O'Connor asked him, and he said, not if you look at last week. So it's hard to assess where they were after that game. They were very impressive. Ulster were missing a lot of players. They're back from the 2-week trip to South Africa, which we've seen before. We've seen last year with teams. It does take it out of you a bit, particularly Munster when they had that semi-final in Racing and stuff. So Munster were very good. Ulster very poor.
Yeah, I mean, Ulster giving up 64 points is absolutely ridiculous.
It's a record defeat for them, and it's not something you want to kind of be part of as a player. So there was a couple of new players for Dan McFarlane's side, but they were very, very poor, and it didn't help Ian Henderson going off with a HIA, John Cooney, someone like Henderson. In fairness, we keep things together a little bit, but Carberry was very, very impressive. Keith Earls coming back. Matheson at scrum half was really good. And the forwards reacted as a unit. Niall Scannell, having him back and is a massive boost, because he's an international quality player we saw in Australia. So it was a good performance, really good performance for them, particularly the forwards, but they'll have a different test this week. So I'm sure they'll be pleased. And the challenge now is, how do you learn from those away defeats and make sure they're on the road again, because we saw from the Glasgow one and the Cardiff one, they're really poor. If they go back to the same type of performance against a really, really, the best team in Europe, Leinster at the moment, and they showed that in Connacht. So it's a real challenge for them. Do they play Joey Carberry? Will Johnny Sexton play? Will there be a bit of rotation with players? I suspect there might be.
No.
I suspect there might be, Ger, because a lot of these guys are back in the Pro 14 a little bit earlier than they normally are. So,
well, that would be ridiculous.
Wait and see.
Is that what you think is that what you're hearing is going to happen?
There could be a little bit of look. But
Carberry might not play. Sexton might not play.
I'd say there may be a chance that Sexton may not play. If he plays this one, he's going to play. He has to play the week after in Europe. Probably the week after. So it'll be a run about 5 or 6 games for him on the trot, which is.
It's hugely likely for Munster going to Exeter the following week.
Yeah, I think it's. But Leinster have the ability of playing Ross Byrne and putting Johnny Sexton on the bench, and not really. Obviously there's a difference in the quality, but they still have such a good side and a good squad that they may do that. And Ross Byrne played in teams last year that beat Munster, so don't be surprised if there is a few changes with the Irish guys and there is a bit of rotation. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I just suspect it may do. But I think, look, Munster will be in. They've got to get form on the road, because you're going away to Leinster, then you're going away to Exeter in Europe, and they're 2 big weeks from.
It's such a fascinating time to watch the form graph of a lot of individual players, and one person is Tommy O'Donnell. Now, obviously, when you talk about poor defence, the first try for Tommy O'Donnell was basically a gimme. It was Darren Cave who slipped off the tackle there in that one, and of course he got a second one on the board. He's been unlucky with injuries in recent seasons. Probably would have been in the mix for 2015. He obviously got injured in the warm-up game before then, and we've kind of forgotten about him because we've got so much depth in that area. Is he potentially in that realm of potential bolter for the World Cup?
He is. He's a very talented player, and he's been so unlucky with injuries, and it's good to see him back. Obviously, Clote is going to put pressure. There's more competition there for that 7 slot. But he is a really good player, and I think he's been very unlucky. So yeah, if he gets a run of form, there's no reason why he can't. That form has to come in big games, though. If he starts next week against Leinster, if he's playing Van der Fleer, Levy, Sean O'Brien, he's got to step up and mix it in with those guys. Same with Exeter the week after. So you want to play well in the big games, and then you grab that attention. It's hard to judge it for any of the players Saturday night, but he's been so bloody unlucky with injuries, and when he's performed for Ireland and got the chance, he's done well. But there's so much competition there. But it's good to see him kind of getting his confidence back like that.
Yeah, the hip dislocation injury that he has come back from is the type of injury that has ended multiple careers.
Yeah, a hip dislocation is phenomenal. He's had a few shoulder injuries as well, and some guys are a bit more unluckier than others.
Just to go on to the Leinster game, you mentioned Van der Fleer, obviously at the end of a pretty horrific stamp. The type of stuff that you don't see anymore in big time rugby, because it's on camera, and it's like, it's complete madness for anybody to stamp on anybody at the back of a ruck like that on their head. And rightly, he should be facing anything between a 3 to 6 month ban.
Yeah, and probably in my time playing, you've seen that, and Johnny Lacey, the referee, asked, was there any mitigating factors? He was trying to get the angles. So if there's a mitigating factor, it's not going to save him from the red card, but it may save him when he goes into for the hearing. Dominic Robertson-McCoy. It was shocking, as you say. You don't see that anymore. Sometimes probably when I played, you'd see a guy, if you're holding a leg, that you'd see him kick out and maybe kick a guy in the shoulder or kick a guy in across the chest or something. But
there's the still footage.
When you get on someone's head like that, I cannot imagine for the life of me that he consciously thought about doing this. It's just a complete reaction, but it's a crazy reaction. And to go near anyone's head, he's going to get heavily punished. And unfortunately for him, maybe now, he's going to get a severe ban here. Thankfully, Josh Van der Fleer wasn't injured, and in fairness, Josh Van der Fleer he's a tough bugger. He came out and said, "Look, it's done. I don't think he intentionally decided to stamp on my head. It was just a reaction thing." And
the scrum cap there, how important was that?
Yeah, it protects the skin from breaking and stuff like that. But geez, I can't remember any game that I've seen that in a long time. You know, it's just not done, and he's going to pay the price and have to try and recover from that. But it's about the player here that, you know, that kind of a scenario just cannot happen, and it should not happen.
But when you were playing, there was still rucking a little bit, but it was
and it's probably on the body, and nobody's gone off the field with a severe injury. You might have, I had it myself, stamp on the calf, your back, whatever. You go to France, it was...
If you're lying on the ball, but that's at the back of the ruck. The ball's not like...
Yeah, it's not... But I think Josh Van der Fleer has his hand around his leg, but it's still absolutely zero excuse for that. It was really bad.
The Leinster performance, you were saying, was...
Well, you know what it was, Ger? It was robust, it was aggressive, it was physical. They showed a lot of composure, no panic whatsoever, and confidence. There was a few penalties early on. Jack Carty scored a penalty after 2 minutes. That's all Connacht scored in the game. They didn't score for another 78 minutes. And Sexton had a couple of kickable penalties, and they went to the corner. Now, they didn't get scores directly from them. A couple of phases later, he got a couple of penalties, 6-3 at half-time. But you just sensed that Leinster's attitude was totally different from that game last year, and they wanted to avenge that, and they went out with a bit of anger, and they backed it up, really. They were just physically very aggressive against Connacht and just took away their flow. Now, to be fair to Connacht, they never gave up, and they're pretty ferocious in their efforts, and they really tried to mix it physically, but Leinster just have that bit of power, that bit of aggression, and the control from Sexton then was really impressive.
Yeah, they conceded 15 penalties at the weekend, Connacht, and the previous week it was like the swashbuckling style that they perhaps got to know under Pat Lam a small bit, a renaissance of that to a certain extent. Do Leinster just do that to you, where you sort of have to revert to a style that you're perhaps not that au fait with, that you don't want to revert to, I should say? Yeah,
well, they force you into losing your discipline a bit by holding onto the ball so well and being so efficient at the breakdown, and just pressure. And then that's the key at that level, at the top level, who's going to relent under the pressure. And then Connacht did. They didn't roll away. They had hands in rucks. They were pulling down mauls. and just making it pretty easy for the referee to give penalties and punish him. And if your discipline is that high, we know particularly from international rugby, the fine margins. And Joe Schmidt is always preaching about keeping that number under 6-7 in a game. And if your discipline is good, the chances of being on the end of a positive result are very, very, very high. It's rarely, very, very rarely, you'll see a team with up in 15, 16 penalties winning a game. So discipline was an issue for him. And look, I think Andy Friend was very understanding of what happened, and he gave a lot of praise to Leinster afterwards, how good they are and how they put him under pressure. But they just didn't take a couple of opportunities they had and couldn't break down that Leinster defence. And that was probably the big story after the game. They got a try from Ringrose and Larmour, and they could have had one or two more opportunities, but defensively they were so strong.
I saw somebody saying that the Ringrose try was a result of bad defending from Connacht. I was thinking it's kind of missing the point. This is exactly how
he does. He
dances and dances and dances and sees a tiny gap and goes through it. And there's a break in the Connacht defence there. I'm like, well, okay, fair enough. If that's how you're going to talk about that, but I thought it was a little bit of genius.
It was, and he has the ability to do that. And you know what? Even looking at him again this season, I think he's getting stronger. He's looking more powerful, electric on his feet. You think him 2 or 3 years ago as a young kid, 20, 21.
He was scrawny then.
He was a little bit, yeah. So he's filling out and he's getting stronger. He's grown a bit. He looks really, really in good shape now. And I think that little bit of Inderville Bridges, you just can't give him any time and space. And he just spins, dances, goes one way. Super player. I don't know, just the eye test looking at Bundyaki, thinking he looks skinnier, he looks like leaner. He looks way leaner. Yeah, we were saying that last week. He looks really, really lean and fit, and I'd say there's been a massive focus on for whether it's been coming from
the Ireland camp,
or the conditioning with Jason Cowman, or the management, obviously. But he looks lean. He looks really sharp. He was really good against Scarlets the week before. We were speaking about that. So, some guys trying to put on a few pounds. Some guys trying to lean up. Because obviously Bundyaki's a very chunky, blocky guy.
Yeah. And there was some suggestion that whether or not he was going to last 90, 95 minutes of game time.
Yeah, and I think since he's gone into the Irish squad, I think he's probably had to change his condition a little bit and got a real taste for that, and looks like he's buying into the international rugby and wants to be part of it going forward. Because look, at the end of the day, the condition is the top guys they're phenomenal. You look at someone like Tyke Furlong as a tight head prop, the work rate, the amount of moments he has in the game, the contributions. If he's carrying an extra 2 stone, he's not been involved in that stuff. He's running around like a back sometimes.
I did hear somebody make the case that he's the best athlete in Irish sport at the moment, that Furlong.
Yeah.
Probably goodness, one of those strongman competitions or a triathlon or something like that, but certainly conditioning and fitness at that top level, and Bundyaki looks really, really in good shape.
Sean O'Brien obviously off the bench is the other big news from a Leinster/Ireland perspective, so fingers crossed he's ready to go for the November internationals. Was he a little bit trimmer as well? Is there like a general, this is kind of the trends from the International Rugby Championship. We've seen in recent years that the teams are becoming, so if you put the body weights of the first New Zealand team that won the World Cup after their drought with the last New Zealand team that won the World Cup and the one that's going to win the next one, then there's a definite shift towards more high intensity sprints, like lesser bulk for the scrums, because 8 scrums, 5 scrums over the course of a match versus 20 back in the old days. You want your teams to be able to run and run and run and run.
Yeah, there's been a shift in this kind of mentality, particularly in my time playing in the last few years. So we often had a situation where we wanted to be more fitter, be able to run more. Then there was other seasons where we felt we weren't strong enough, we were being overpowered, and getting that balance right of trying to put on weight or maybe get leaner. I think the ideal scenario is power and fitness now. It's not necessarily about bulk and size. Some guys are just naturally bigger than others. But I think that's changing. That change happened in the last few years, and particularly probably we keep saying the All Blacks are involved in a lot of this stuff. We watch the way they play, but they're probably the pace setters and set the bar each time. Since the rule came in that you had to show a clear release of the breakdown, it's probably harder to get turnovers, so the rucks are going to be quicker. People's technique at breakdown is much better, so it's harder. You know, we don't see a huge amount of turnovers in games. We see guys getting close.
Yeah.
So that means, obviously, Jared, then that the ball is going to come out quicker. It's going to be in play a little bit more, and the stats and figures have showed that it's in play a little bit longer. So then you adjust to that, to those stats, and that's what teams do. So I think there is more of a push on that leanness and power rather than bulk and size. And particularly the type of way the game has changed a little bit in the last 2 or 3 years, where it is a little bit more expansive because of the criticism maybe at the World Cup that the Southern Hemisphere four more semi-finalists, and maybe it's because of the offloads and the styles we play. So I think all the national teams have tried to change and got fitter and pushed, trying to have that pace. If you go back to Leinster last year over in Exeter, was it something like 45 phases for Jack Conan's try? You know, it's hard to do 45 phases and be that controlled and focused if you're not in super condition.
Yeah. Okay. The Rugby Championship obviously came to, it was won officially by New Zealand at the weekend.
Yeah.
A routine victory for not their strongest team.
Yeah, I was disappointed with Argentina, to be honest, because they showed a lot of promise. Obviously, they beat Argentina in Argentina, or they beat South Africa in Argentina. They gave them a rattle in South Africa, and they gave New Zealand, you know, a good go in New Zealand as well. So I thought this is going to be maybe an 8 or 10 point win for New Zealand, or maybe 4 or 5 point win. I thought they'd give them a scare, but they were competitive. But it just goes to show the depth. You have 4 or 5 guys gone out of the team, first choice players, a couple of injuries, and you know they have an ability to bring guys in who are just a different level. Rico Ioane is just an absolute freak. That's a picture of him there. He's just incredible. He is so quick off the mark, and he's just lethal for him to score. And if he gets any opportunities, so yeah, they've wrapped up the Rugby Championship again, which is a pity. It'd be great to see a decider in South Africa next week, or when they play the South Africa there in Johannesburg. But good win for them, but disappointing result for Argentina and performance probably in the end.
What happened to Australia in this Rugby Championship?
I think they're physically getting beaten up front. They play much too deep behind the gain line. And
would you have anticipated this, having been down in Australia for the month?
No, I wouldn't have. I thought they were, but we've seen a few false dawns with Australia over the last couple of years, and they were very optimistic in the summer tour, particularly after the first victory against Ireland, and then probably not so pleased with the second and third tests, and looking for, I wouldn't say excuses, but for reasons to believe that some stuff went against him. The Falau yellow card. I like Michael Cheika a lot, and I think he's very passionate, and sometimes he's a little bit outspoken. But to be fair to South Africa, they've improved a lot, and it was always going to be a tough match for them. But I think it was the New Zealand performances that probably irked the most when you're playing, and then being beaten by Argentina at home. That's probably the last kind of slap for them.
Do you expect them to survive at this point?
At this stage, I think there's no reason why. Why would you change at this stage? No, they might be forced to change. Michael Cheika is a very wealthy man. He said that before. He doesn't need the job for financial reasons. He does it out of passion. Okay, that doesn't excuse results, but I think, I don't know how anyone will change this and bring in what kind of players, because I watch a lot of their Super Rugby teams. To be fair, on paper, they've quite a good side, but I just don't know. I think the players they're not physical enough.
Yeah.
Their discipline is an issue at times. We're talking about the Connacht one. They gave away lots of penalties against Ireland.
But doesn't that madness come a bit from Cheika?
Maybe it does, yeah. Maybe it does. Maybe a change is needed. I don't know. I probably don't know the ins and outs of their whole setup. I know they struggle in Australia, and there's a bit of turmoil going on with playing numbers and players playing league, Aussie rules, all that stuff. So it's not good for the exposure that they're trying to create there within the game and win fans over. So bad results create a bit of negativity. And I think they have a very talented group of players and a lot of super athletes, but not gelling well together at the moment.
One last question here from a listener. Can we ask Alan what he thinks of the Italian teams this season? Treviso seem to be going well and below the radar.
Very, very pleased. I think they're superb. I think the where they probably could struggle is when their internationals are away. So they've played a lot of their internationals throughout the last number of weeks and been very, very competitive. So it's great to see for the Pro 14. The challenge is when November internationals, the Six Nations is on, but
they've been having joint training sessions.
Yeah, they have. Yeah,
like the whole way along.
Yeah, Conor O'Shea's been there, and Michael Bradley is involved as well. So it's brilliant to see, and I think I genuinely would love to see the Italian teams and the Italian national team knocking a few people off their perch and being more competitive. It'd be much better for the Six Nations and the Pro 14. That, you know, it's great to see Benetton. They're up in fourth. So it's and the games they've lost. I think Benetton lost to Edinburgh at the weekend, in Edinburgh, only by a point.
Yeah, their point
Scarlets beat...
point seven is only 21. I mean, you know, with Ulster getting hammered the way they were at the weekend, nobody's calling for Ulster not to be in the competition anymore, but like, bad results happen, it seems, sometimes.
Yeah, they do, yeah, and it can, like we said the week before, 1 week can change the opinion of people.
We'll obviously talk a bit more about the weekend when it's Leinster-Munster at the Aviva, but...
You don't care about that game anymore, right? You said the rivalry's dead.
Suddenly Connacht have a chance to go to Belfast and win.
Yeah, it'll be a different Ulster side. Yeah, they have a chance.
This is their, like, they've got to be riding into that going, come on.
Yeah, massive chance for them, for sure. It'll be a different Ulster team. They'll have a lot of guys back.
If Joey Carberry scores 30 points, I'd be delighted for Joey Carberry. Whereas if, like, O'Gara had scored 30 points at the height of the rivalry, I would have been disgusted. That's what happens in these... Anyway, sorry, I interrupted.
You think the rivalry is kind of diluted a bit? It is, yeah.
Dead,
it is, yeah. It has. I think it has. And I've covered these games for the last number of years. Obviously played in ones that there was a lot of biting.
Yeah.
So it has changed a little bit. They're all mates now, and they're playing the Irish team together, and they hang around with each other.
You not celebrate a Munster win?
And would I not celebrate? Are you joking? Of course they would, Owen.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's still a rivalry
They're
there.
the best team. Well, they're the best side in Europe, and look, it just depends. Leo Cullen can chop and change. He's so much quality and depth. But it's a good test for I think there'll be a bit of bite in this one, because I think Munster they have to carry a little bit of expectation with them, with Carberry, Bjorn, Taute, you know, Botas coming in. They have a few players.
Fully fit team this year compared to the...
Well, they're still down a couple of guys. You know, Chris Farrell is not going to be back for a few more weeks, and Conor Murray, obviously. But I think hopefully this one's a good one.
Okay. Good stuff, Alan. Thanks very much.
Cheers.
A reminder, you can listen to OTB AM every morning. Just go to the site offtheball.com from 7:45 and press play on the player at the top of the screen. And OTB AM is live with screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. Back to GAA for a moment. We're going to be talking about the club championships around the country in just a minute. We'll run you through all of the main stories, in particular Owen's love for East Kerry and why they're going to win the Kerry County Championship, but not the club championship because they're not allowed to play. We'll get our annual explainer from in a minute on that. Here's Cian O'Sullivan talking Diarmuid Connolly and first Sean Cavanagh at the Electric Ireland Minor Star Awards on Saturday night, discussing officiating in the club game.
What should be done? What can be done? Is anything going to be done?
Okay, well, it really comes back to the officials, and it comes back to if the referees, linesmen, umpires are capable of officiating a game properly. Quite often games won't boil over and won't get to a stage where we've seen some ugly scenes. And look, everyone wants passion, and whenever I play, I bring as much passion as anyone does. The only thing you don't want is dangerous tackles. You don't want people hitting from behind, from the side. You don't want anything that's going to discourage maybe parents to send their kids to Gaelic over a soccer or a rugby whenever they're choosing sports. So I think if county boards and officials and the GAA make the right decisions and if we can increase the technical ability of referees and their ability to interpret what's dangerous and what's part of the cut and thrust in the game, I think we can definitely improve our games or product. I always was a huge advocate whenever I played international rules. there was a second referee in the pitch, and there was always the off the ball stuff, the ugly stuff was always watched, and you knew as a player you're being watched, because quite often, and even at club level, the stuff that goes on, it goes on when the referee's back is turned and maybe there's neutral, or there isn't neutral linesmen or umpires, and players will push the boundaries whenever they have the opportunity to do that. So I'm not sure whether we have enough to get a second referee on a pitch, but maybe at county level, maybe it's a start.
You've mentioned Dermo, so I'll ask you about him. He's in Boston now, flying. Scored an unbelievable goal recently, I saw. Missing from the Dublin camp this season. Did you miss him, and do you miss him, and have you spoke to him since the tree, and do you hope to have him back in blue, or what's your thoughts on his exodus?
Yeah, you'd obviously love to have Dermot back. He's incredible talent, and one of the leaders in the team and our vice captain the last couple of years, and I'm glad he got the chance to go over and spend a summer over in the States, something that he obviously wanted to do over the last number of years, and I hope he really enjoyed it. And if he decides to come back playing football with the Dubs, I'd be absolutely delighted, and I know the rest of the lads would as well. But that's the decision for him, and I don't have any insights into what he's thinking these days. I think he's just enjoying his time at the moment, enjoying the bit of ball he's playing over there, and it'd be great to see him back.
Were you surprised that he stopped playing for the Dubs?
No, there's a couple of guys who've done that the last couple of years. Rory O'Carroll, decided that he wanted to do a bit of travelling and experience living in a different country and a different culture. And he's been over in New Zealand the last couple of years. And there's Jack McCaffrey as well, who decided I want to take a summer out and do a bit of charity work. So we're not professionals. We've got lives to live as well, and football does take a massive commitment, and you have to 100% buy into it.
Yeah, so that was all before the news broke that Diarmuid Connolly was back in harness this weekend for Vincent's officially.
Yeah, shall we try and go through all of the club action from the weekend? It's like one of those weekends where it's impossible to go through everything in a concise manner, but let's try and do it anyway. Let's start off with Vincent's against Castleknock. Vincent's beating them comprehensively in the end. 12-point winners. Diarmuid Connolly came on after 50 minutes.
Have a listen. Is that Parnell Park? Let's go like Parnell.
Yeah.
Is it? Anyway,
there he is.
Came on, played well. Game was over at that stage, but Castleknock were goal up after 10 seconds. Back of the net from Kieran Kilkenny. This is going to be interesting because obviously.
Was it Kilkenny?
I think so. Yeah. No.
I don't think it was.
You had different information. Okay, Grant. I thought he was playing full forward at the start and scored an early goal. Anyway, maybe. Castleknock had reached a club final against them, obviously, and so that was the expectation that maybe this Vincent team were going to get caught by them, because at some point they're going to get caught, right?
Yeah. 7 All-Ireland medal winners about to start in Parnell Park. This was Brian Flanagan's tweet before the game, though you wouldn't know it by the size of the crowd. This is actually something worth mentioning. We are always given these horror stories about how club football or hurling is dying, but in the Kerry Championship, which we'll get to in a moment as well, you'll hear in a moment, you could hear the calls on the pitch. And there was people tweeting before the game saying very, very small turnout here. I know the fact that the Kerry games were on TV probably didn't help. A lot of people will be interested in watching the golf as well. Nobody went to the Down game in 2010 because they were all down in Clarny watching the golf. Maybe they were at home watching the Ryder Cup.
Nobody went to the Down game because you don't go to travel.
No, went to golf for that one.
Come on. I mean, that's the truth. I don't know, because I was just thinking yesterday that there's a good chance that the Dublin County Championship and the Kerry County Championship will become the best that Gaelic football has to offer over the next couple of years if the inter-county scene continues the way it's going. That the competitiveness, the lack of defensive, the decision that the counties have made to play attacking football as opposed to just be defensive and not have an attacking threat to your game. And also how close the teams are to each other.
Yeah, well, that's the main thing, really, isn't it? You would have thought that maybe, certainly on the outset, from the outside looking in, you would have thought it would have been a Vincent's versus Ballymun final if they were to avoid each other, but that's not going to materialise because Ballymun are out. Just one other mention for Vincent. Mossy Quinn scored 1-6 for them at the weekend, so he's still doing it, and they played Judes, as you can see there, in the next round. They were the ones who knocked out Ballymun Kickham, despite the fact that Dean Rock scored 1-7 in that match. Ballybone St Enda's had a healthy enough win against Nafina, 3-13 to 15 points. We mentioned the Baskels earlier on. Ryan Baskell scored 2-5. Colin Baskell scored 1-2. Connolly then chipped in with 3 points. Ballyboden and St Leonard's are going to take some beating here. If you want to put that draw back up for just a sec. Yes, they do avoid St Vincent's. So you are looking at a Bowden against Vincent's final there. Of course, Kilmacud Crokes will take good beating as well. They're an outstanding team. They beat Sylvester's 217 to 15 points at the weekend. Obviously, Paul Mannion in tow for Kilmacud. So the Dublin Football Championship is kind of being stirred up nicely at the moment. What you need is like a shock here and there while maintaining strong teams for a top quality football championship. And the Dublin Senior Football Championship is so deep with top quality talent in every team really that you do manage to get that with Ballymun being knocked out. You mentioned Kerry there. It was a quarterfinals weekend, doubleheader in Tralee on Saturday, doubleheader in Killarney yesterday.
The decision to split the dubs, if you were ever to do it, that Bowden Crokes, that'd be like an entire Dublin team themselves. That's like the south side. Well, you'd obviously be adding in Conor Callahan and Mick Fitzsimons, but that is like the battle for the south side. Kings of the south side, official, unofficial south side championship final right there.
Yeah, it's will they party in, what is it, Keogh's afterwards? What's the name? Where was the fight after the schools game?
Kylie's.
Keogh, sorry. Apologies if there's a place called Keogh's. Kylie's. That's where they should go afterwards to celebrate or kind of drown their sorrows. Kerry football quarterfinals, you mentioned there, East Kerry beating South Kerry 4-12 to 2-10. Dara Roach scoring 2-3 for East Kerry. The two Cliffords doing a lot of damage as well. Apologies now for the quality of this videoing. I'm not very good at the old videoing, but you can have a listen to this audio after David Clifford gets the ball in the corner, goes onto his left, tries to put it over the bar, and balloons it wide. I might just play that one more time. You're going to have to listen closely.
Oh, what a score, boy!
Oh, fuck off, is the response. So now we don't have to.
Is it Clifford saying oh fuck off?
Oh yeah, of course it is.
Is it?
It has to be.
Is it? And so the guy
marking him is like on a score.
No, it's people in the crowd.
Ah, no, it's
Come
not.
on, it must be.
It's not.
It's the two lads.
It has to be. That's the way I took it. I think no matter who it is, it's brilliant. Like that is that's just
club football writ large.
Yeah, without question.
Oh, let's go by when you're like a shank that goes nowhere near it.
The thing is, like,
did it go out for a sideline?
Goal kick.
Oh, did it? Did it go wide?
It did just about though. That's actually one of the great pastimes I have, is actually if you listen closely on league matches or club matches in TG Carhart, actually what's being said in the crowd, you can always pick out what a lot of people are saying if they're particularly angry and things like that. But it was a good day in the end for Clifford. Yeah,
what a score, boy!
There was one I could hear a friend of ours giving out particularly in a particularly vitriolic way to the referee in a Kerry League match actually last year. You could hear very clearly what he was saying. You're an absolute joke, ref. It was the polite way.
It wasn't you, no.
It wasn't me. Don't worry.
And sorry, just to confirm though that yesterday on our WhatsApp group about what was coming up in the show today, I was like, oh, we do the club football. Look, this Legion game is on, and Owen is watching the golf just to further. Just to pile on the fact that he didn't go to the All-Ireland minor final when Kerry were doing their first 5 in a row to go off and see that music shite at Electric Picnic. He was watching that golf shite yesterday instead. So you are getting kicked out of the Kerry Mafia.
Maybe I will. It'll save me a few crappy trips during the league anyway in February, so I'm happy with that. Not really. Dara Roach there, as we said, scored 2-3 for East Kerry yesterday. Not sure to get man of the match. Crokes, though, they're kind of back with a vengeance. You wouldn't like Crokes when they're angry, I think is the phrase here. They beat Legion by a scoreline of 120 to 9 points. Tony Brosnan kicking 9 points for them yesterday. One of that crew that kind of came along just before the 5 in a row All-Ireland minor winning teams. That kind of gets forgotten about because he doesn't have an All-Ireland medal, which is very unfair, given that there's going to be plenty of those All-Ireland minor winners that aren't going to make it at senior level, but there should be people prior to that who should make it to senior level quite successfully, and he's been given a chance before. He might get a chance again under a new manager.
Well, so there was an interview afterwards where he was basically issuing a come and get me plea to the new manager.
I missed that.
Sure, I'm available anyway.
Yeah,
if they want me.
He has played. He came on against Clare, I think, in an All-Ireland quarter-final.
Oh, they went through the whole. You were part of the panel, you made it the league team, and you got dropped from it, and you got injuries. And he was like, yeah, my form is bad, got a few injuries, just wasn't playing well. Now I'm playing well. And sure, the new county manager in and everything was like, yeah, there is. I'm available if they want me.
Yeah, he's playing very, very well at the moment. Dingle beat Austin Stacks 3-9 to 9 points. Paul Ganey scored 2-3 in that game. But the big story from this match was that Mark O'Connor was back from Australia only about 4 or 5 days before the fixture and lined out played as a sweeper in front of Cian O'Sullivan. Cian O'Sullivan didn't score. O'Connor did get taken off with about 20 minutes left, but quite a successful deploying of the sweeper there. We are saying that club football in Kerry is in a good state and all that, but there was a sweeper, I will admit, played in that game, but it worked to great effect for them. They won by 9 points in the end. And then the final clash was Cairns O'Rahilly's, who of course had sent Dr. Crokes to the back door and had clearly made Dr. Crokes quite angry given the scores they put up over the last 2 games. They beat St. Brendan's on a 3-11 to 115 scoreline. Tommy Walsh and David Bjorn both scored 1-1, and we can see the draw here from Radio Kerry yesterday.
Folded up around, and first out of the cup here this afternoon is Cairns O'Rahilly's, and Jim Garvey of Garvey Group will pick the second team. So it's Cairns O'Rahilly's versus...
So Cairns O'Rahilly's against Dr. Crokes once again.
O'Rahilly's versus Dr. Crokes. So it's easy to do the other ones, lads, I suppose.
This semi-final stage.
Semi-finals.
The hometown of the Garvey
Dingle versus
Group.
East Kerry, is it?
Dingle are taking on East Kerry, and before we...
So, yeah, they're going to be two cracking encounters. Like, the thing is, the very easy narrative to write about this is that, as I say, Crokes are very, very angry. They are not going to allow Rahilly's to beat them a second time, because, of course, in that match, Crokes were killing them at half-time, and Rahilly's came roaring back. Tommy Walsh was unbelievable in that match. And
Cairns O'Rahilly's is Micheál Quirke's team? Exactly. Against Crokes. And the other one is East Kerry against
Dingle.
And why is Dingle able to field a team when they're... Is Dingle a regional team as well?
No, West Kerry will be their regional team. So West Kerry, let's put it this way, would be delighted if Dingle ever got relegated from the senior championship and got put into intermediate. Therefore, you'd have Ungaeltucht and Dingle together as part of West Kerry and the other small clubs around that area. Whereas, say if Dr. Crokes got relegated from senior championship, which will never happen, they would actually be playing with East Kerry. So it could be an all East Kerry final, so to speak, in the county championship between the East Kerry district and Dr. Crokes.
And who's making up the East Kerry team at the moment?
Well, it's very strong at the moment because Kilcummin got relegated last year.
From senior.
From senior, and they also have Glenflesk.
So, how many senior clubs are there?
You're putting me on the spot here.
Roughly?
10, I want to say.
Okay, and so they automatically qualify for this championship. And then how many regional teams are there? 3, 4?
No, so you've got West, North, East and South, and then you've got like St. Kieran's, you've got St. Brendan's, you've got Shannon Rangers, which are different regions of the county. So you've got 8, if I'm not forgetting one there. I'm sure someone will correct me. So you've got 7 or 8
and so if you are an intermediate or junior footballer, you can join with your local region and you automatically get qualified for this, and it's straight knockout?
There is one phase, one backdoor phase, but if you get knocked out, obviously, at the weekend, you're done. So yeah, everybody gets to play Senior County Championship, which is fantastic. It's a fantastic way of actually finding unearthly gems, really, at the top level of club football down there. So it's a brilliant idea. The thing for East Kerry, though, this year is that in the Intermediate Championship, which is played in April, Kilcummin won that, so they're getting promoted to senior next year, which means East Kerry will lose Kilcummin, and they had 5 or 6 starters in that East Kerry team yesterday to be very, very strong. So
who's Clifford play for?
Fossa. They won't get promoted to senior unless they've got a slew of good young players coming up. Clifford probably won't be good enough to carry them on his own to senior, maybe to intermediate, but not to senior. So it's kind of do or die really this year for East Kerry. We may move on to the Meath Football Championship to round off kind of the last big action. Dunboyne beat Simonstown 2-16 to 8 points, which was an incredible result. Like, Dunboyne are into their first final in a few years. Simonstown were going for 3 finals in a row. They were up by 4 points at one stage at half time, I think. They won the last 2 championships. And then in the other semi-final, Summerhill beat Dunamore Ashbourne in a 3-12 to 2-7 scoreline. So that's the first ever clash between Summerhill and Dunboyne in the Meath football final. Let's run through very quickly what happened in the rest of the other football championships. So Derry Connolly Harps are Fermanagh champions. Ryan Jones scored 1-2. They beat Eden Derry in the final. And then we have a slew of football finals confirmed. So Laois is going to be Port Laois against O'Dempsey's. Loud will be Newtown Blues against Nave Martin. Offaly is going to be Road against Ferban. And Sligo is going to be Turla Stranraer there anyway in the Sligo final. The other semi-final was due to take place at the weekend against Tubbercurry, against Coolani, Mullinabrina, but that clash was called off due to a bereavement in the Tubbercurry club. And then Wexford's going to be Shelmaliers against Killenarin. Matty Ford scoring 1-3 for them at the weekend. So there's a few of the football finals confirmed. Tyrone back in action at the weekend. We saw Sean Cavanagh talking about club football in Tyrone. Eden Dork got through to the semi-final there against Ardbow, while Oma, in a pretty surprising result, were knocked out by Killyclogher, and Errigal Kieran were knocked out by Coal Island. There was no accidental violence this week in the Tyrone County Championship, which I'm pleased to report. The Donegal semi-finals are confirmed as well. Kilcar were knocked out. They were missing like Paddy McBrearty, Ryan McHugh, and then they lost Mark McHugh in the first half, and Glen Swilly are through, as are McCools and Gaydor. And to finish off in the football end of things, Cracklow are into the semi-final in the Clare Football Championship. They beat Coor Clare by a cool 18 points yesterday. They're also into the semi-final. In the hurling, wasn't as, I guess, they didn't have as much volume over the course of the weekend, but there was still a lot of things to pique the interest. Cork, we'll start off with Emo Killy beating UCC on a 321 to 115 scoreline. Seamus Harnedy with an early goal there to get them on their way. Mark O'Keefe, this is an interesting one for Emo Killy. He's a midfielder. He was playing the night before, and he managed to poke 5 points from play anyway, and they kept Mark Coleman scoreless, which was obviously vital to beating UCC, and Middleton are going to be the other team in the final. Connolly Han scored 1-6 for them. Kilkenny then, our third last county to go through, Ballyhale Shamrocks beat Dixborough on a 124 to 119 scoreline. TJ Reid, 115, not bad, not a bad day out. They're away the winners now of James Stevens against Aaron's Own. Aaron's Own beat Carrick Shock at the weekend in the kind of preliminary quarter-final stage. The other two quarter-finals of the weekend, Bennett's Bridge had a win and Clara had a win. Then Tip. So the semi-finals pairings are confirmed. In one semi-final, you've got Thurles Sarsfields against Nina Éire Óg. Now, this was a crazy game involving Sarsfields at the weekend. Ronan Maher scored a goal 2 minutes into injury time to beat Kilruan McDonough's on a 214 to 116 scoreline. Like they are on the way for a record equaling 5 titles in a row, and they were on the way out. So it was game over, and then Ronan Maher just stepped up out of nowhere with a beautiful goal to save them. And then Nina Éire Óg beat Lockmore Castleiney 217 to 18 points yesterday. The other semi-final pairing is Toomey Vara against Clonalty Rossmore. A thrilling finish in the Toomey Vara game. They were up against Druminch. Seamus Callinan scored 11 points for Druminch, but they were 7 points and a man up with 20 minutes to go, and they did win in the end, but it ended up just being a 1 point win in the end, so it was nervous times for them. And Clonalty Rossmore beat Killadangan by 4 points. And then finally Galway hurling, we're into the last 8. St Thomas's, Liam Mellows, Loughrea and Sarsfields are into the last 8, I should say, and then there's like a preliminary quarter-final yet to take place. Cashilgar, Tommy Larkins, Capatagal, Gort, Turlockmore and Tyna Abbey Duneri are in there as well. Portumna not going well for them. They faced a relegation playoff.
Yeah.
They lost to Malab 121 to 120 at the weekend.
Mulya,
yeah, that's it. Joe Canning versus Cathal Dervin was the shootout at the weekend from all those spectators who kindly tweeted and helped give match reports. I should give a shout out to the Irish Examiner Club GAA section, where a lot of that information came from this morning. It's like a 12-page supplement on Club GAA. It is outstanding.
Yeah.
There is a lot of copy in that, and it was a great help this morning, so big shout out to the Irish Examiner.
Yeah, no, fair play to them indeed. A couple of quick comments for you. The easy narrative is no one outside of Kerry and no one give a shit about the Kerry Club Championship and its convolutions, says Emma Keane.
Stop asking me about it, basically, is what I would say. I agree with you.
Juan Jose 16 says, Kerry Club Championship explainer, please. So, there you go.
Well, two sides of the fence there.
Okay, from the top then. Lambe R says, was it Nathan, Joe or John who predicted that the USA would hammer Europe on one of the shows last week? Genius move by Bjorn, setting up a proper golf course rather than the chip and putt stuff in USA.
They all predicted USA to hammer Europe. There was only one voice of reason in this studio last week.
Yeah, who was that?
It was me.
You still think Declan Rice is coming back to play for Ireland?
No, I don't. I got that one wrong. I got that one badly wrong.
Who got it right?
You got it right, Ger.
Hey.
It was speculation, though.
David Lynch says, the only Englishman I truly love, Ian Poulter, he has Ryder Cup gold. There is that 1 week every 2 years where you're allowed to go, yeah, Ian Poulter, he's great. And then you're like, just check out his Instagram feed, check out the rest of his life. It's like, nah, it's all right. Just having you this 1 week, Ian. Go for it.
I wish Tyrrell Hatton had a better weekend, because straight away on the first tee on Friday morning he was just beaming, and I was like, I can get behind this guy. I know he's English, but I can get behind this guy.
Rory, half the player Woods is, he will never get near his brilliance, says Willie Casey on Facebook. Kieran McCormack on YouTube says the Ryder Cup is a great spectacle, but to hammer the US is a damn squib. It was a bit of a damn squib, but I mean definitely yesterday afternoon when it looked like John Ram might be about to bag his pants, and at that point Poulter looked like he might be about to get caught as well. If those two had gone, then there would have been a weird kind of energy behind the USA at that point.
Yeah, let's not forget, like 17 and a half, 10 and a half. Like, take the Noren putt at the end, which was a monster putt to win that last point. Like, how much more difficult would that have been? How much harder would that point have been?
You're basically giving America 3. That gets them to 13 and a half, and suddenly they just need half a point to retain the whole thing. So, West Ham are good. People talking as if Man United are entitled to win, says Alan Duncan on YouTube. The point about Manchester United being entitled to win is the point that Andy Mitten made. In terms of the money and resources and tradition that Manchester United have, they are entitled to win because money wins stuff. In big-time professional sport, big budgets dictate who is going to win ultimately in the long run. Manchester United have spent a ton of money and have got really no return on it since they've started spending the money in recent seasons under the Glazers. And I don't know if you remember, but when Alex Ferguson was the manager, those games against Man United, they routinely won 2-0 or 4-0 with 2 early goals. They would play around for a little while and then they scored 2 more at the end. Everybody, the 80,000 tourists would all go home happy. But Dave O'Shea says there's a reason why Fergie got rid of Pogba. I mean, yeah, because he let his contract run down and Juventus offered way more money.
Yeah, there is also a reason why José Mourinho hasn't just fallen out with Paul Pogba. There is a reason why we've seen stories about Anthony Martial being criticised by José Mourinho for going to see the birth of his child. There is a reason why we've seen a little bit of bubbling of tension between him and Marcus Rashford. The reason is that José Mourinho is probably the main reason why there is a problem going on.
He's a bit of an asshole. Remember Gerard Piqué was also at Manchester United and got shit canned because he let in a near post, somebody beat him to a near post header one time in a league game. Manchester United could have done with Gerard Piqué for the last decade and a half. You know, that would have been okay. Alex Ferguson didn't get everything right, is the too long didn't read version of that. Please keep Mourinho's descent into full-blown lunacy is the best story in the league, says Richard Kenny, who I suspect is a Liverpool fan. Juan Jose 16 also says, the fact Zidane doesn't speak English would be the least of his worries. Worried to be the new man. British figures' inability to grasp a foreign lingo isn't mirrored by Europeans in the British game. When he arrived, Pochettino apparently had pidgin English and had a translator and refused to do the English stuff until he was ready to go, and then he went and, like, no one thinks Pochettino, the language barrier was an issue for him.
Yeah, Pochettino happened quite quickly though, wasn't it? It wasn't like I'm trying to recall the Southampton appointment. Was it mid-season? Either way, this Mourinho thing might not blow up for another month or two. Zidane is currently learning English if we are to believe reports.
Oh, right, okay.
He'll be a 2-month veteran of English by the time he comes. That's like 400 hours of Duolingo right there.
Technical director, when he comes in, says Donald Power will be beneficial to the club and a new manager will give everybody a lift that is needed. The owners are still an issue. The owners aren't going anywhere and the owners are continuing to pump money into the club as well as take money out of it. So, like, when you think about it, I think ultimately, apart from the philosophical issues that people have with the owners, they've been a net kind of neutral in terms of allowing the club to succeed or fail. By not having football people run the transfer system, that's the key issue, or having somebody who is keeping an eye on where that money is going when they're buying defenders for 30 million who are no good. That's the issue. They bought badly.
Yeah, there's been a remarkable amount of people painting over cracks over the last week when it comes to these financial figures. Like a fantastic piece by Sam Wallace yesterday in the Sunday Telegraph talking about how Real Madrid did exactly that last week when Florentino Perez is talking to his shareholders and all that sort of stuff and saying, well, you know, revenues in Real Madrid have gone up by like 12 million over the last year. And in actual fact, I didn't know this. Maybe it's well known, but it was the first time I read this yesterday was that Real Madrid actually take their turnover number on the 30th of June. So on the 30th of June, so they take their revenue number from midnight that night. So on that day, they take all the money in from all the season ticket holders. So their revenue is at an all-time high. The very next day, they pay their players. They only pay them twice a year. So they take their figure right before they give their biannual payment of the players, and right after they get in all their money from the season ticket holders. It's a nice little colouring of the financial figures, which may or may not be going on at Manchester United as well. You'd assume if Real Madrid are doing it, Manchester United might not be far behind that. Are we to believe how commercially successful and how commercially viable all these football clubs are?
The other thing just on this that I didn't realise until recently was that in the NFL, when you hear about a guaranteed number, that guaranteed number goes into an account in escrow and is locked away and gets paid out over a period of time. So if I'm signing Khalil Mack to a guaranteed contract of 100 million, I need that $100 million in cash that day I sign him to that contract, and I need to put it in an account. That's why it doesn't happen that much. So financial shenanigans in top level sport, there's a slot in that, which we might get to at some point sooner rather than later. That's pretty much all we got time for this morning on OTB AM. We're back tomorrow morning from 7:45 AM. Keep an eye on offtheball.com across the day, and of course Off the Ball will be live on the radio on News Talk this evening from 7 until 10. We'll see you tomorrow. Good luck.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.